Chapter 1196. Irene slowly stood up from kneeling on one knee. She held the laser lightsaber and pointed it at Natsuki while looking around. She looked at the magicians who were tightly bound by the purple, glowing chains and was hesitant. Logically speaking, with Irene's intelligence, she should give up on the mission and choose to retreat. That would be the wisest choice. After all, she had already confirmed that her opponent was invincible. If she continued with the mission, they would be completely wiped out. That was definitely not a good thing. If it was the old Irene, she would definitely make such a choice. However, her opponent was not only a little girl who looked less than 10 years old, but also an angel with life. She was the angel who almost sent Irene to hell with her overwhelming power. Irene was unwilling to retreat just like that. Of course, if that was all, Irene could still convince herself to retreat. With Irene's personality, she wouldn't throw a tantrum just because her opponent looked like a little girl and overestimate herself by challenging her. The real reason why Irene hesitated and couldn't make the decision to retreat was because of Mei Jio. Irene could tell. Mei Jio's current state was like an arrow at the end of its flight. Mei Jio wouldn't be able to withstand a simple attack in her current state. At that time, Irene could directly take Mei Jio and use her as a hostage to lead the DM magicians to retreat smoothly. That was why Irene didn't choose to retreat immediately. After all, she only needed one attack, right? As long as Irene was given a chance, then everything could become a reality. What Irene needed now was a chance, a chance. Ripples appeared in Irene's eyes, indicating that her heart was wavering. She kept looking around. She was trying to find that so-called chance. However, the DM magicians were all restrained. They couldn't support Irene, and the Bandersnatch were all destroyed by Mei Jio. How could Irene find a chance? Until this moment. Only then did Irene realize how troublesome it was to not have a capable assistant by her side. If she could have someone who was far more powerful than the average magician to support her, then even if the other party's strength was not as good as hers, she would still be able to find an opportunity to make this mission a success. If Chong Gongzhen was still in the DM, the situation would have been different. He didn't even need Chong Gongzhen's level. Even Jessica's help would be good. Thinking of this, Irene suddenly froze. Wait a minute, Jessica! Irene's eyes narrowed as she glanced at the bound magicians. Her lips curled into a smile. Nayu puckered her brows when she saw this. Right at this moment, a red ray of light suddenly descended from above her head and shot down violently. Sensing the sound of rushing air above her head, Nayu gently lifted her head and looked above. Immediately, the scene of a red laser shooting over was imprinted into her eyes, causing her to narrow her eyes. Mana surged from his body, and the chains of discipline around him began to move. One of the chains split off and arrived above Nayu's head at lightning speed. It also arrived in the path of the laser beam. Boom! The red laser hit the chains of discipline, but it didn't even cause the slightest ripple. How could these display devices destroy the chain forged by the gods? However, in the next moment, an endless stream of red lasers rained down on Nayu's body without giving her any chance to explain herself. How annoying! Nayu sighed and stretched out her hand again. She snapped her fingers, and the empty chains of discipline shot toward her. One by one, they intertwined with each other and formed a net of chains that covered Nayu's head. Bang, 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 bang. The rainstorm-like red flashes shot at the iron net formed by the chains of discipline, triggering a series of explosions and smoke with sparks. Natsuki turned a blind eye to everything around her. She shifted her gaze to the sky, through the gaps between the chains formed by the chains of discipline. Then she saw something. Jessica is holding a laser cannon and continuously pulling the trigger. She is crazily shooting laser after laser at Nayu. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Pulling the trigger of the laser cannon as fast as she could, Jessica yelled with a ferocious expression. Why can't I hit her? Tisk! Nayu smacked her lips in annoyance. She raised her parasol and swung it. The space around Jessica began to vibrate and boil like boiling water. Several purple magic arrays suddenly fluctuated and shot out purple chains. Like whips, They fiercely whipped Jessica from top to bottom with sharp whistling sounds. Bang! Bang, 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 bang. Following a clear, shattering noise, Jessica's territory, domain of will, was shattered cleanly. Then, after a series of muffled sounds, all the chains were whipped onto Jessica's body without missing a single one. After suffering such a heavy blow, Jessica spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. Now's the time. Just as Jessica was about to receive the attack, Elaine's eyes flashed with a sharp light. The flamethrower on her back was activated at full force, and her figure shot out. She arrived before Mei Jio in the blink of an eye. The laser sword in her hand was aimed at Mei Jio's abdomen and mercilessly pierced out. Mei Jio didn't even have time to react before Irene appeared in front of her. She watched as the golden laser sword stabbed into her abdomen. However, the ripping sound that should have been heard did not ring out. Irene's laser lightsaber also seemed to have pierced through air. There was no sense of substance at all. Both Irene and Mei Jio were stunned. The two of them finally saw what happened. On Mei Jio's abdomen, where the laser sword had pierced, there was a faint ripple that was rippling. As for Irene's laser lightsaber, it pierced right into the center of the ripples. The sword that should have pierced through Mei Jio's abdomen was sucked into the ripple. Not a bad tactic. If I wasn't proficient in spatial magic, you might have succeeded. Before Irene and Mei Jio could figure out what was going on, an inconceivable childish voice echoed in the night sky. Too bad. If you don't succeed, there's no meaning to it. Behind Mei Jio, who didn't know what was going on, a female knight who was 2 to 3 meters tall and was covered in golden armor suddenly appeared out of thin air and entered everyone's eyes. That's the guardian that only witches have. That was also not Suki's guardian, the guardian of gold. The guardian of gold lifted his head that was covered by the helmet, grabbed the greatsword in his hand, and swung it down at Irene. This time, the sound of flesh being torn apart reverberated clearly in the air, reaching the ears of everyone present. Scarlet blood dripped from the air, falling to the ground an unknown distance away. Ugh! Driven by the ejector, Irene, who had dodged to the back, groaned in pain and clutched her chest. There's a hideous wound that's bleeding profusely. Irene didn't have time to care about her wound. She dodged to the back and left her companions behind. She flew to the horizon without looking back. Executive Minister, the trapped magicians of the Dim cried out one by one. Oomph! Na Yu coldly snorted as she watched the figure disappear into the horizon. Her face was filled with displeasure. She managed to avoid a fatal wound? She's pretty capable. Not Suki said this, but she had no intention of chasing after Irene. Otherwise, with her attainments in space magic, capturing Irene would be a simple matter. She cast her gaze on Mei Jio, who was still in a daze, and sighed faintly. Taking care of a little girl is harder than being an offensive magic officer. How'd I end up with such a master? Oomph. Chapter 1197. Heavenly Palace City, Itsuka's house. In the living room, a rich aroma wafted out of the kitchen. The aroma filled every corner of the living room. Toka, Yoshino, Shirzin, and even Kotori had a pitiful look on their faces. Watching Wu Yin tossing and turning the frying pan in the kitchen, Shixian couldn't help but gasp in admiration when she saw Wu Yin tossing and turning the frying pan in his hands. I'm impressed. As expected of master, he's a true master of cooking. Indeed, he's so skilled. Yi Juya, who had been reduced to a slave of a certain wolf but was still waiting for his master to cook, muttered in a tone as though he had a clear conscience. Are all the boys in this world so capable? Don't misunderstand. Kotori, whose red eyes were fixed on the plates in the kitchen, commented bluntly. Everyone has 1 or 2 strengths. This guy is just using his strengths in a way that girls should have. Cut the crap. You people. Wu Yin continued with his work. He didn't even look back. You're all watching others work as if it has nothing to do with you, but you talk so much. If you have the time, why don't you come and help? That way, you can do it faster and eat dinner earlier. Wu Yin sighed after saying that. His face was full of sadness. Why do I have to do all the work alone? Kotori, Toka, Yoshino, and Zen were in disbelief. Kotori said, "Are you really an idiot? Let's not talk about Yoshino and Zen first. If Toka, Yoshino, and I help, it'll only make things worse, right? Then why are you still able to say such a line with such a proud face?" Wu Yin smiled bitterly. "A girl who doesn't know how to cook will be laughed at?" "Who said I don't know how to cook?" Kotori pouted. "Although my cooking isn't as good as yours, I still know how to cook." "Really?" Wu Yin looked at Kotori suspiciously. "Then why haven't I seen you cook?" "Isn't it obvious?" Kotori said in disdain. "In this world, boys are the best at cooking." Wu Yin's mouth twitched, and he sighed again. "Who was the one who said that only girls should have this advantage of mine? Speak." Shi Xian thinks this is pretty good too. She sat on the sofa. Shi Xian, who had been poking each other's arms to improve their relationship, suddenly looked at Wu Yin with a calm tone. Shi Xian thinks that boys who are good at cooking are very handsome. Huh? Kotori paused. She looked at Sunset Cord in surprise. Hey, are you serious?" "I'm serious. Shi Xian is very serious." Shi Xian nodded heavily, casting his half-narrowed eyes at Toka, Yoshino, and Yakuya. "Don't you think so?" "Well, since Shi Xian said so, then it's true. Then there is no mistake." Yi Jia's expression was a little unnatural, but he still raised his head and spoke forcefully. "However, as the master of us 8 dance sisters, it's only natural that you have such talent." I. Yoshino raised her hand with a red face. "I think so too, I agree." Toka clasped her hands in front of her chest, stars twinkling in her purple eyes. "Cooking is the best." Hearing this, the elven girls present all blushed with shame. "Girl, we're asking about the person, not the food. Is the person who cooks less important than a dish in your eyes?" Question. Shi Xian looked at Kotori. "Kotori, don't you think that a master who cooks is handsome?" Kotori's expression stiffened when the topic shifted to her. She used a stiff voice to say proudly, maybe, but that's just a general rule. A general rule. "I understand, so that's how it is." Yushin looked at Kotori with a listless face and said something shocking. "If Kotori marries Master, she'll be able to eat Master's cooking for the rest of her life. It's understandable that Kotori doesn't cook wa." Kotori's beautiful eyes widened. Her face turned pink. Wu Yin, who was cooking almost threw his frying pan away. He couldn't stay calm. Who wants to marry him?" Kotori immediately stood up from the sofa and yelled with a flushed face and neck. "A perverted hypocrite like him who brings back a few girls after leaving the house for a short while. You can have him if you want." Wu Yan's chest was pierced by a few arrows. Tears streamed down his face. "Although I also guess that you would deny it. Is it necessary to do so? Is it necessary?" Kotori crossed her arms and said arrogantly, "I'm just telling the truth. Marriage to eat Shido's cooking for the rest of my life." On the side, Tin Fragrance blushed before a dazed expression appeared on her face. A clear line of saliva slowly flowed down from the corner of her mouth, causing Siyu, who was also blushing beside her, to feel embarrassed. Shi Xian lowered her head and thought for a moment before looking at Kotori again. In conclusion, Kotori doesn't want to marry Master, is that right? Isn't that obvious?" Kotori's eyes were filled with hesitation, but she still didn't mince her words. "I'm not going to marry him." "I see." Shi Xian turned around and exchanged glances with Yakuya. The two of them nodded solemnly. They stood up and ran into the kitchen without hesitation. When they arrived at Wu Yan's side, they hugged Wu Yan's arms with both of their arms. "If that's the case, Shi Xian and I will have to share Master." Agreed. If Kotori doesn't want Master, Shi Xian and Yakuya will have no choice but to accept. Kotori's eyes twitched, and her face twisted. Toka's eyes widened, and she stood up. Kotori, Yoshino, Yagoya, and Yushin thought she was going to object, but she didn't. "Why are you two the only ones who can share Shido?" "I can't." Their legs gave out, and they almost fell to the ground. Oi, you two." Wu Yin was sweating profusely. "Don't hold my arm. How am I supposed to cook?" Just as the 6 of them were in a heated argument and were about to break into a fight, A circular ripple appeared in the middle of the hall without any warning. As the ripple spread out, it instantly attracted the attention of everyone present, causing the scene to become completely silent. Then, everyone saw a petite girl in a black gothic lowly costume and holding a parasol, walking out of the ripples with a beautiful girl in a gown of light that was more or less charred and dusty. It was as if they had passed through a door. Seeing these two people, Toka, Yoshino, Yagoya, and Yushin subconsciously looked at the person they recognized and cried out in surprise. Meijio. Kotori, on the other hand, looked at the petite one with a surprised expression. Natsuki? While everyone else was shocked, Wuyin was the only one who raised an eyebrow. He looked at Meijio, who was covered in soot and soot. He put down the frying pan in his hand, and he walked out of the kitchen towards the two girls. Wuyin looked at Natsuki and Meijio and shrugged. Looks like I've made the right decision this time. Meijio stared at Wuyin. Her bright silver eyes started tearing up. She was filled with emotions. She felt like she just survived a calamity, and she also felt like she was wronged. Wuyin bitterly laughed when he saw Meijio trying her best to hold back her tears. He patted Meijio's head with a tender expression. You must have suffered a lot. Wuyin helplessly laughed when he saw the charred marks and dust on Meijio's body. Anyway, go take a bath first. Meijio, who was always against Wuyin, nodded obediently without hesitation. Chapter 1198. Nighttime. In the living room, Wuyin, Kotori, Toka, and Yoshino sat side by side. Yogi and Yushin stood behind Wuyin. Natsuki sat on the sofa with Meijio, who hasn't fully recovered her spiritual energy. She sipped on black tea as she recounted how the dam attacked Meijio. Due to the Tianyang festival, Shirori had to do rehearsals for her class. She would be staying at her classmate's house for the night. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking about elves and magicians in the living room. Other than Wuyin, Toka, Yogi, and Yushin's expression became more and more serious. Yoshino's pretty face also had a hint of fear. They were reacting to Meijio's near-death experience. Kotori's brows were tightly knitted. Her brows didn't loosen even after Natsuki finished. Another dam. Kotori clicked her tongue in displeasure. She crossed her arms and glanced at Meijio. Although I knew that they had always coveted elves, I didn't expect that even Meijio, who was originally a human and had no problem with her background, would be discovered as an elf after living in Tiangong City for so long. Those guys wouldn't wander around Tiangong City with detectors every day, right? Yes, they really wander around Heavenly Palace City with detectors every day. Even if they're alone, it would take at least a month. It would take a month or so to finish the tour. How could Meijio be active in Heavenly Palace City as an elf for half a year? Wuyin rolled his eyes at Kotori. He rubbed his chin. Well, with the power of Dem, it's not difficult to find an elf living among humans. It's just a matter of time. Meijio also uses her spiritual power to sing every time she holds a concert. It's already very surprising that she hasn't been discovered for half a year under such circumstances. Kotori nodded in agreement. She suddenly frowned. According to what you said, is Meijio's identity exposed because of the concert? Kotori looked at Wuyin. The more she thought about it, the more likely it seemed. After all, didn't Irene appear at Meijio's concert venue when she invited you to meet Will Scott and Dem last time? Perhaps it was exposed at that time? Wuyin pondered for a moment. He nodded. Very likely. Meijio was stunned. His expression became slightly complicated. He didn't expect it. In the end, the reason why she almost fell into a desperate situation was because of her singing. Could it be? Was it really wrong to use the power of elves to sing? Meijio was at a loss. She couldn't help but look at Wuyin, who was deep in thought. If he didn't use the power of the elves to sing, would his voice be restored? Would he listen to her sing again? With this thought in mind, Meijio shook her head again, as if she was trying to get rid of the distracting thoughts in her mind. She fell silent. Regardless, I've completed my mission here. What to do next is up to you. Natsuki sipped from her cup of black tea as she spoke casually. After all, this is your home ground. I won't give you any suggestions. That's true. Kotori rubbed her temples as if she had a headache. but that Irene is really strong. Normal elves aren't her match. Even the old me wouldn't have been able to defeat her. Someone like that is too dangerous. Coterie was a little annoyed. There's nothing they can do about it. Irene's strength is a huge threat to the elves. Other than Toka and Coterie, no other elves are Irene's match. Even Toka and Coterie wouldn't be able to defeat Irene if they weren't summoned by Wu Yan. Under such circumstances, Irene's existence is the biggest obstacle for Ratatoskr. If they can't find the elves in the real world before Irene, they'll most likely die. Even if they're lucky enough not to be killed, they'll be captured. Ratatoskr, who advocates peaceful means to solve the elves' problems, can't just stand by and watch this happen. Now, because of Oni-san, the Dim didn't come to us, but they must have gotten a hold of our situation. Coterie narrowed her eyes as she looked at everyone. I'm afraid that the fact that there are more than 5 elves living in this house has already been found out by the Dim. Perhaps even the existence of Ratatoskr has been exposed. Come to think of it, once we reveal any flaws, they will definitely attack us without hesitation, right? Isn't that dangerous? Yakuya couldn't help but ask. Of course, Yushin said worriedly. Even if Master is here, we can work together to fight the enemy, but Shirori is still in this house. The robot army won't even let Shirori go. Toka was shocked. Isn't Shirori a human? The Dim won't give up the chance to kill the elves for a bunch of normal people. Coterie sneered. It's not just my sister. If the Dim really comes to us, even the neighbors might be affected. The Dim can just find an excuse to get away with it, since no one would dare cause them any trouble anyway. The Dim has the ability to create a display device. Almost every country relies on the Dim to provide the display device. Even though the existence of the display device isn't disclosed to the public, how could the world not be tempted by such a powerful device? Just like the AST, the display device has been equipped with important institutions in every country for a long time. Therefore, if the Dim doesn't want to provide the display device to a country, it might greatly weaken the country's national power. Don't think it's exaggerated. In order to obtain the powerful display device, some countries even owe the Dim a huge debt. Since the Dim is an important source of the display device, no matter how unwilling the Dim is, they won't offend the Dim for a bunch of normal people. This is the reality, even if it's cruel. If that's the case, we can't just sit by and watch. Wien clenched his fist. He glanced at Miyuki, Yagusha, and Yushin before turning to Coterie. Don't tell me the Ratatoskr higher-ups aren't going to do anything about it. Those bastards only know how to hide behind the scenes. They won't stand up against the Dim. Coterie pouted. Yasgate Electronics' display device technology is more advanced than the Dim's, but due to their different viewpoints, the Dim has recruited a large number of magicians. Their combat power is much stronger than the country's. In comparison, we don't have a single decent magician on our side. It's already hard enough to have a real magician. How are we going to fight the Dim's magician army? This is more troublesome than I thought. Wu Yin closed his eyes and knocked on the table. After a while, he opened his eyes again. If that's the case, let us do it. Do it? Everyone was stunned. That's right. Wu Yin turned around and looked in the direction of the Dim branch office. His lips curled into a cold smirk. If we uproot the Dim's base in Heavenly Palace City, they'll restrain themselves a little, right? Uproot the Dim's base. Toka, Yagusha, Yushin, Yoshino, and Miyuki were stunned. Coterie's face tensed up as she stared at Wu Yin. Are you serious? What do you think? Wu Yin grinned. His eyes flashed with a glint that told Coterie if she's telling the truth. This. Coterie hesitated. Isn't this a little too extreme? Let's compare it to the Dim. Wu Yin sighed. You'll realize that I'm already being merciful by not saying we'll kill all the magicians in the Dim. I agree with you on this point as well. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the hall. He had a pair of different colored eyes, one red and one gold, and a bewitching smile appeared on his face. So, can I participate as well? Many people in the hall were shocked when they saw the newcomer's face. Kurumi. Chapter 1199. Heavenly Palace City DM branch office. Tonight, the night sky was dark with no stars, no moon, and no clouds, making the night seem especially long. The territory of the Dem seemed to be far away from the hustle and bustle of the mortal world. The lights in the streets between the Dems' territory and the Dems' territory seemed to be unable to shine over, causing the area between the Dems' territory and the street to be incomparably dim like a dividing line. It was as if telling the world that the other side of the dividing line was not something they could touch. The darkness of the night was a stark contrast to the lights. In the territory of the Dem, many of the Dem members loved the night. While others were sleeping, they were doing their own things in the buildings. Of course, a portion of them were only on night duty, patrolling the area. In the most luxurious office on the top floor of the first office building of DM's branch office, Westcott stood by the window, looking at the brightly lit buildings below. He then looked at the night view of Heavenly Palace City in the distance, seeming a little absent-minded. That's natural. This was because Westcott was listening to Irene's report on the operation to capture the diva. His sharp eyes narrowed, opened, closed, and curved as if they had been carved by a knife. His eyes changed along with Ellen's explanation, but unlike his eyes that were constantly changing, Scott's face had a different expression. From beginning to end, he had a meaningful smile on his face. This posture made it hard to tell whether Westcott was surprised or amused. The emotions in his heart were hidden very deep. People who weren't familiar with Westcott couldn't tell what he was thinking from his actions. Coincidentally, Irene was this kind of person who was familiar with Westcott and could see what he was thinking. Therefore, Ellen did not hide anything. She recounted the entire operation of capturing the diva from the beginning to the end. She even told him the situation before and after she escaped. Irene believed that as long as Westcott could find even a little bit of useful information, then the next mission shouldn't be too far away. At that time, Irene will definitely do her best and won't let herself fail a third time. At least, that's what Irene decided in her heart. Even if she had to face the same situation again, she would still choose to escape. After Irene finished explaining the whole process of the operation, it was already more than half an hour later. Westcott's smile didn't change during the entire process. It was as if he wasn't the one who coveted the diva. He didn't care about the mission failure at all. Instead, he became interested in other aspects. An angel that has life, a human form, self-consciousness, and can move freely? Westcott looked at Irene curiously. Is there really such an angel? I don't know. That's what he said. Irene paused and said, although we can't choose to believe the enemy's words, compared to having such a powerful person appear out of nowhere, I'm more willing to believe the former. That's interesting. Scott closed his eyes as if he was trying to hide his emotions. The corner of his mouth curled up. Can you bring that special angel back? Irene's expression changed a few times, and then she closed her eyes. Based on the current situation, there's not much chance of success. What a strange answer. Scott couldn't help but laugh as he looked at Irene with a teasing gaze. In the past, you would have said there's no target in this world that I can't bring back, right? I do want to say that. Irene opened her eyes and met Westcott's gaze. Unfortunately, it's the truth. I can't ruin Ike's plan because of my willfulness. This answer is more in line with your character. Scott shrugged and asked casually, what about the magicians who went on the mission with you? They came back not long ago. Irene replied expressionlessly. The angel didn't seem to want to do anything to them. They said the angel let them go and they came back. What about Jessica? She's heavily injured. Irene's expression didn't waver at all. She spoke as if the heavily injured magician was a mouse not worth mentioning. After being treated by the manifestation device, her injuries are almost healed. She should be yelling about tearing the angel who injured her into pieces, shouldn't she? Indeed, Jessica would do something like that. Scott seemed to be amused by Irene's words. He couldn't help but chuckle before glancing at Irene. What about you? I've also been healed by the manifestation device. Irene's face didn't change at all, but her hand had already involuntarily reached for her chest. Due to the severity of my injuries, I won't be able to fully recover if I don't have time to rest. This is the second time I've seen you with such serious injuries after the last time I came back from Homey Island. Well, Scott frowned. Are you all right? I'm fine, Irene answered without hesitation. Although I need time to recuperate, I can still fight now and display my full strength. However, I can't fight for too long. That's good. Westcott nodded with a smile. He turned around and continued to look out the window. What about the diva? Seeing that Scott did not ask any more questions, Irene hesitated for a moment before asking her own question. Should we continue to monitor the angel's movements and arrange for the next capture mission? Since that person even sent his angel to protect the diva, it proves that he won't let us touch the diva. Well, Scott shook his head. So, let's not think about the diva for the time being. It was Irene's turn to frown. Are we going to ignore the elves in Heavenly Palace City? For now. Westcott waved his hand at Irene without turning his head. His indifferent and calm voice drifted into Irene's ears. Tell the people below to keep track of the elves' whereabouts and situation at all times. Don't let them out of our sight, especially that person. He even has an angel that I've never heard of. I have a feeling that he's not an ordinary elf. Irene narrowed her eyes and her face darkened. Itoka Shido, huh? Westcott lowered his head and a happy smile appeared on his face. I'm getting more and more interested in him. Too bad I didn't ask him to join us. Toward Scott's words, Irene was rarely noncommittal. Irene didn't know Wu Yin well, but that didn't affect her judgment. He's an elf. The DEM is an organization that kills elves. Under such circumstances, how could he possibly join the DEM? She did not even need to think about it. Westcott should have understood this, but he did not seem to have given up on letting her join the Democratic. This did not match Elaine's understanding of Westcott. Elaine could only assume that Westcott had his own considerations and plans. In her mind, the faintly smiling face that seemed to be engraved in the depths of her mind appeared once again. When she recalled the other party's powerful strength and the equally powerful angel, Irene's breathing quickened a little. Because of her slightly hurried breathing, Irene raised her head and inadvertently swept her gaze to the sky outside the window. However, with this sweep, Irene's pupils violently shrank, and her expression changed drastically. Irene! A shrill cry rang throughout the office. Irene suddenly pounced in Scott's direction. A golden radiance flashed over her body, and the Pendragon, Irene's special Sur unit, appeared on her body. Irene immediately activated her Turde Tory barrier and rushed toward Scott. At the same time, outside the window, in the night sky, an overwhelming sea of red lotus flames that emitted intense heat shrouded down without any explanation. In an instant, it landed on the entire DM branch office and the office at the top of the first office building. Chapter 1200. In the sky above the DM branch office, in the void, a piece of space suddenly undulated up and down like the surface of the water. At the same time, invisible ripples spread out, like a mirage gently swaying, full of illusions. Not long after, in the ripples, several figures walked out in the air, as if they were taking a stroll. They appeared in this dark night sky, floating above the DEM branch office. It wasn't until all of the figures walked out of the ripples that the ripples gradually dissipated. The people who came were naturally Wu Yin, Natsuki, Kurumi, Yakuya, and Yushin, who planned to directly attack the DEM branch office. Originally, Toka and Yoshino also expressed that they wanted to come together, but they were rejected by Wu Yin. Toka and Yoshino were indeed very strong. One was a 9th order powerhouse, and the other was a peak 8th order powerhouse. If they helped, presumably, this battle should be much easier. However, compared with the strength of the two elf girls, their personalities were not suitable for this attack. Toka was simple, naive, and romantic. Although it's not that she hasn't fought before, she has never taken the initiative to fight, let alone kill. The purpose of this attack was to uproot the DEM branch office in Heavenly Palace City. Under such circumstances, even if Wu Yin didn't intend to carry out a massacre, he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't kill anyone. Taking the initiative to fight like this may even evolve into a massacre. Letting Toka come with them. It's a bit inappropriate. Not to mention Yoshino, this little girl who was so kind that she didn't want to fight back when she was attacked by others. She didn't want to bring pain and fear to others. Bringing her here was really cruel. Therefore, Toka and Yoshino were pressed at home by Wu Yin and the others to sleep. As for Meijio, let's not talk about whether she was willing to come or not. First of all, she hasn't recovered her spiritual power yet, so she would only drag them down if she came. As for Kotori, she returned to Fraxinus. She's ready to provide backup at any time. She's also here to help Wu Yin and company. If anything goes wrong, she'll be able to detect any anomalies and act as backup for Wu Yin and company. In any case, with Wu Yin, Natsuki, Kurumi, Yaguya, and Shixian's strength, it would be impossible for them to defeat Huang Xiaolong. If there were no accidents, dealing with a dim branch company was just a matter of time. With Wu Yan's red jade mode suppressing everything, it would be difficult for anything to go wrong. Is this the headquarters of the dim magicians who specialize in killing elves? Wearing a skimpy, skin-tight, restraining suit with shackles on his hands, feet, and neck, Yi Jia looked down at the territory of the dim with an excited smile on his face. You look very fragile, master. Can I blow it away? Agreed. Shixian didn't seem to have a good impression of the dim either. Her silver eyes were filled with a reckless desire to destroy everything. It looks like a wide area of effect, but if I work with Yi Juya, I should be able to blow away everything inside. Era. Sounds interesting. Kurumi tilted her head and tapped her lips with a finger. She had a covetous expression on her face. It's a pity they don't have a wide area of effect attack. What a pity. Same here. I've never done something like demolishing a building. Natsuki held up her parasol. She glanced at Wu Yan. But a job as destructive as this should be the most suitable for vampires like you who can control familiars, right? I don't plan on releasing my familiars, at least. A branch company isn't worthy of me releasing my familiars. Wu Yan grinned, and he took a step forward. He arrived in front of everyone, and he looked down at them. He raised his hand, and a crimson spatial ripple appeared above his hand. The ripple spat out a long sword that exuded an ancient aura. The sword fell into Wu Yan's hand. I don't plan on releasing my familiars, but I'll give them a nice greeting gift. I don't need to use my familiars. Grabbing the Nyaton Shana, Wu Yan grinned maliciously. It's enough for me. As soon as he finished speaking, a thick red lotus flame burst out from the blade of Nyaton Shana. It expanded and shot into the sky like a pillar of fire. It was so hot that even the air was evaporating. It instantly turned into a curtain of fire. Next, Wu Yan swung Nyaton Shana down with a curtain of fire. Bang! In an instant, the entire red lotus fire curtain collapsed and poured down crazily from the sky like a tide. It was like a sea of fire that covered the sky and covered the earth. It was like a waterfall, steaming hot air. With a loud bang, it fell to all the buildings below. Kaboom! The violent sea of fire hit the territory of the dim branch company without any explanation. The temperature between heaven and earth rose in an instant, and the rich red lotus flames rushed in all directions. It was like the magma of a volcanic eruption, and also like the sea of fire that exploded, burning all the buildings of the dim branch company. What is this? Fire? It's fire. It's on fire. Heavens! Why is there such a big fire? Put out the fire. In less than 10 seconds, the land occupied by the dim branch company was engulfed in scorching flames. One building after another was engulfed in flames. The terrifyingly high temperature on the ground caused the glass windows to melt and evaporate in an instant. Visible to the naked eye, scorch marks spread across the ground. One by one, people escaped from the buildings in a sorry state, screaming crazily. This scene was like a scene straight out of hell. Ooh. A loud alarm rang out from the building below, spreading throughout the entire area in an instant. It's the space-time alarm. It's unknown if it's to defend against the sea of fire or because they noticed Wu Yin and Ko's arrival. The spacequake alarm reverberated throughout the entire dim branch. Shortly after, the buildings bathed in the sea of fire were covered by thick steel plates. Most of the people moved away to take shelter. Then, Wei Yan's group saw something. Magicians in CR unit and cold Bandersnatch robots flew up into the sky like locusts and flew towards them. Kurumi pursed her lips and smiled. We've been discovered. They're finally here? The corners of Yi Juya's lips curled up into a smile as he stretched his body. Perfect. I haven't moved my body for several months. It's about to fall apart. I'm excited Shi Xian thinks so too. Shi Xian had a rare smile on her face. After all, I've been living a comfortable life. It can't be helped that my body has become sluggish. What should we do, Admiral? Natsuki had one hand on her waist and the other holding an umbrella. She ignored all the magicians and Bandersnatch robots below. Her delicate face was as calm as an ancient well. She had a condescending expression on her face. However, it's true that Natsuki didn't care about those weak magicians and Bandersnatch robots. She wasn't afraid, even when she could only use her avatar to move around. Now that she can use her real body in Guardian, she's Wei Yan's familiar. Do we need to dismantle these pieces of scrap metal? Wei Yan wanted to nod when he heard Natsuki's words. However, he stopped when he heard the sound of something breaking through the air. He looked over with the girls. In front of them, in the first office building burning with red lotus flames, a stream of light shot out from inside at extremely fast speed. It flew over and appeared at the head of the group of dem magicians and Bandersnatch. It's Irene who's holding Will Scott. You guys. Irene's pretty face was so gloomy that water was about to drip out. She supported Will Scott's body and glanced at all the buildings that were covered in layers of flames. Her face was slightly twisted. She looked up at Wei Yan, Natsuki, Kurumi, Yi Juya, and Shi Xian. She gritted her teeth and stared at Wei Yan, who was holding a saber with blazing red lotus flames. Her eyes were filled with terror. Chapter 1201. The flames wreaked havoc, and the scorching heat vented itself on the ground. The slowly burning red lotus fire mercilessly burned everything in the dem branch office. The steel that covered all the buildings, which were specially used to defend against the space quake disaster, showed signs of melting under the burning of the flame. Under such circumstances, if a normal person stepped into the sea of fire, they would be instantly incinerated to ashes. Even magicians who could control Sir units would be heavily injured if they didn't use their territory domain. Of course, no one would be foolish enough to stay in the sea of fire and be burned. All the ordinary people in the dem branch had entered the underground shelter and avoided the disaster. The magicians in the dem branch carried their Bandersnatch and flew into the air, arriving behind Will Scott and Irene. Glancing at the base camp that was covered in a sea of fire, then looking at the 5 floating figures in a row in front of them, even if the magicians had low IQ, they could understand what was going on at the moment. Clearly, the dem branch office was attacked, and the target was the elves they had been hunting. At the thought of this, the dem magicians were suddenly at a loss. The switch between the prey and the hunter was a resounding slap to their faces, and they were a little caught off guard. Not to mention the magicians from the dem. Even Irene herself couldn't believe that the dem branch office was attacked by elves. After all, elves had always been prey in Irene's eyes. On the contrary, Will Scott, who had been floating in the air by relying on Irene, was the first to react. He looked around the dem branch office that was engulfed in flames. Looking at the buildings that were gradually showing signs of destruction in the flames, his expression didn't change as if it had nothing to do with him. However, Irene, who was familiar with Will Scott, noticed the smile on his face that seemed to be in control of everything. Now it was long gone. It was obvious that although Will Scott didn't care much about the sudden attack on the DM branch, he was definitely not in a good mood. Looking at Wei Yan's group of 5 floating in the air, Will Scott finally revealed a smile. Just as the others thought, he didn't care what happened to the dem branch office at all. Good evening, Downlord Scholar. I didn't expect you to grace us with your presence at this time and give us such a big gift. Wei Yan raised an eyebrow when he saw that Will Scott's expression didn't change at all, even though the dem branch office was attacked. Looks like this gift isn't enough to satisfy you. How could that be? Will Scott shrugged. He glanced at Kurumi, Yagusha, and Shi Xian and the corner of his mouth hooked up. I can invite their devil, nightmare, and berserker with a bit of scrap metal. I'm quite satisfied with such a good deal. After speaking, Scott looked at Natsuki. His sharp eyes narrowed slightly as he smiled. This should be Dowlord Scholar's angel, right? It's an honor to be able to see it with my own eyes. Natsuki raised an eyebrow and pursed her lips in displeasure. It's not that I don't know of your existence, but seeing you with my own eyes still doesn't give me a good impression. You're as annoying as that snake charmer smile. Natsuki didn't hide her disgust at all. Scott was more or less surprised. He didn't know who the snake charmer was, but he tactfully didn't ask. Instead, he looked at Wu Yin again. Well then, Dowlord Scholar, you didn't come here so late just to give us some gifts, did you? It's nice to talk to smart people. It saves me a lot of trouble. Wu Yin sighed. He looked at the smiling Scott and the tense Irene and chuckled. The reason I came here is very simple. Your recent actions have been quite unpleasant, so I came to remind you to restrain yourselves. What is the meaning of this? Irene raised her head abruptly. Her cold gaze landed on Wu Yin. Her voice was as cold as ice as it dropped to zero. Are you here for revenge? Revenge? Wu Yin couldn't help but laugh out loud. He took a few steps forward, and his mocking laughter reverberated in the air. Are you saying that only you DM are allowed to hunt the elves, but the elves aren't allowed to retaliate? That does sound like something a domineering dim would say. Irene swung her laser sword and pointed it at Wu Yin. Red Devil, do you think you could take down the entire DEM? I don't know if we could take down the entire DEM. Wu Yin glanced at the ground below. But today, we will unceremoniously take over the branch company that DEM set up here. Sage Dowlord, you'd better think this through, Westcott said nonchalantly. Although I don't really care what happens to this place, the headquarters won't just stand by and watch the elves destroy the branch. Destroying this place will only bring you more trouble. As long as I can make you guys behave for the time being. Wu Yin shrugged while holding Niatono Shana, who's still burning with red lotus flames. As for the rest, when we gather more companions, we will naturally settle the accounts with you one by one. Hearing this, even Scott couldn't maintain the smile on his face. Wu Yin's meaning was clear. He planned to use the time the DEM took to recover from the destruction to win over the rest of the elves. When that time came, it would be difficult to tell who was the hunter and who was the hunted apart from the alliance of the elves. This is something Westcott, who has always coveted the elves' power, didn't want to see. Westcott shook his head and sighed as he stared at Wu Yin hovering in the air. It seems like we can't be friends anymore. Friends? Wu Yin almost laughed out loud. He looked at Scott with a disdainful look. Should I call you naive? Or should I call you a joker? You're right. That's true. Scott patted Irene's shoulder and raised his hand. However, I can't just hand this branch over to you, or else I won't be able to explain myself. Let's see if the human magician or the elves will win this war. Everyone, carry out the order. Elaine yelled as soon as Westcott finished his sentence. Capture their devil, nightmare, and berserker immediately. You're allowed to kill them. Don't hold back. Yes. The resounding response instantly resounded throughout the entire DEM branch office. Raphael Ilrim. Echo. Raphael. The Binder. El Nahash. At the same time, Yi Gaya and Shi Xian also raised their shackled hands. A violent gust of wind swirled around their hands, like a vortex retracting back into their hands. When the storm exploded, a pair of cold, mechanical wings appeared on Yi Gaya's right shoulder and Shi Xian's left shoulder at the same time. On the arms that were on the same side as the wings, there was also a hand gauntlet that shone with a metallic luster. A huge crimson conical spear and a chain with a rhombus-shaped blade appeared in the hands of Yi Ju Shi and Shi Xian, who were wearing gauntlets, respectively, and gripped them tightly. The dark night sky was covered by thick dark clouds. Violent winds, comparable to the sea of fire below, began to wreak havoc in the air. The sky and earth were extremely oppressive. Chapter 1202. In the DM company that was filled with tall buildings, the fire was gradually expanding under the violent wind. The wind was also becoming more and more violent under the burning of the flames. The wind helps the fire, and the fire helps the wind. Accompanied by the raging winds and the sea of fire, the buildings belonging to DM were inevitably destroyed one by one on the ground. Charred stones flew everywhere under the raging winds. The entire DM branch company was slowly walking towards destruction. Yegu Shur held a huge Ilrim spear in his hand. The tip of the spear spun rapidly like a drill bit, bringing with it a strong gust of wind. Like a huge tornado arrow, the spear shot out with a sharp whistling sound and attacked the Dem magicians. Duskcord also swung the El Nyash chain spirit pendulum in his hand, creating complicated trajectories in the air, creating gusts of wind. As Duskcord swung it, the gusts of wind turned into sharp wind blades, slicing forward. The magicians of Dem were blown away by the storm created by Yakuya and Shixien. It was as if their chests had been hit by an invisible hammer. They screamed and disappeared into the horizon like pieces of paper. For a moment, the sky above the Dem branch was filled with screams and cries of agony. On the other side, Kirison was floating in the air wearing a blood-red princess dress. A dense black shadow rippled out from his body and quickly expanded. Hundreds of identical wild threes immediately twisted and shot out from the black shadow, rushing towards the Bandersnatch team that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. The DM's Bandersnatch troops didn't even have time to aim the laser cannons on their palms at the large number of curtains. The curtains rushed in front of them amidst a series of air-piercing sounds. They actually directly used their hands to viciously pierce through the hard shell of the Bandersnatch, instantly destroying the Bandersnatch in front of them. Bang, 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 bang. Not long after, the Bandersnatch that had their bodies torn apart exploded in midair, stirring up clouds of dust and flames. The explosions didn't stop. It didn't stop. Under Yeju Shur's, Shixien's, and Kirison's attacks, the number of magicians and Bandersnatch squad was decreasing at an unstoppable rate. Of course, the magicians and the Bandersnatch troops did not just stand there and not fight back. Dense gunfire and laser beams flew out from their weapons from time to time, drawing a trajectory in the air. They flew towards the three elven girls. Unfortunately, the difference was too big. Just by relying on these ordinary magicians and mechanical dolls, there was no way they could turn the tables against the three elven girls. The cries of the magicians continued, and the Bandersnatch gradually turned into pieces of scrap metal and fell to the ground. They were incinerated by the sea of fire below. If this continued, it would only be a matter of time before they were all wiped out. However, it would take a lot of time. After all, there were too many magicians and Bandersnatch squad. Yeju Shur, Shixien, and Kirison only had 3 people. Even with the help of Kirison's clones, it wouldn't be easy to take down all the magicians and Bandersnatch squad. One thing was for sure, the war was still going on. The magicians of the Dem squad, the Bandersnatch squad, the elves that looked exactly the same, 2 powerful storm warriors at this moment. In the sky above the DM branch office, bullets were fired, gales raged, artillery fire raged, and smoke rose from all directions. The warlike attack and defense battle was still ongoing, causing the scene to be in chaos. In the attack and defense battle between the 2 sides, the Dem branch below was either destroyed by the sea of fire, the wind, or the aftermath of the battle. It wouldn't take long for it to completely turn into ruins. At that moment, Irene, who was the main combat force, carried Will Scott and drove the Pandaragon engine to a shelter below at full speed. Compared to Irene, Will Scott was no doubt a burden. In such a war, it was impossible for Irene to wholeheartedly participate in the battle with Will Scott. She still had to protect Will Scott. In that case, Irene's battle prowess would drop by several levels. Only by letting Will Scott leave the battlefield can Irene fight without any worries. After putting Will down, Irene started the engine again and floated up. "Ike, you should go take shelter first." Will Scott nodded and knitted his brows. "Can you do it?" In the previous mission to capture the Diva, Irene had suffered a near-fatal injury. At this moment, Although the display device with superior healing effects had healed Irene's injuries, Irene herself had said that her injuries weren't fully healed. If she joined the battle, she would be fine for a short period of time. However, if the battle dragged on, she would be affected. Irene knew her family's situation well. Naturally, she had to consider her own situation. Therefore, she nodded at Westcott. I understand. I don't plan to directly participate in the battle. Turning her head, Irene looked at the only office building that remained intact under the sea of fire. A glint flashed in her eyes. I plan to use that. Well, Scott was stunned. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and came to a realization. However, he soon frowned again. Are you sure you can do it? You're alone. Of course. Elaine didn't even think about it before replying. My body is heavily injured, but my brain isn't. I can still operate it alone. As expected of you. Well, Scott smiled and waved his hand. If that's the case, then you can go. Remember, if you fail, just retreat directly. It's just a branch company. We can rebuild it at any time, but if DM loses you, then the loss will be huge. I understand. Leaving this sentence behind, Irene started the engine on her body, turned around, and flew toward the direction of the first office building. Westcott stood in the middle of the sea of fire and looked up at Wu Yin and the others who were fighting in the sky. To be more precise, he was looking at Wu Yin alone and smiled. We will meet again on the other side. While Yakia, Duskcord, and Kurumi were engaged in an unprecedented battle between the elves and the magicians, Natsuki was looking ahead with a calm expression. I didn't expect you to stand in front of me. Aha! Natsuki's words were met with maniacal laughter. That laughter came from a woman with red hair and a pair of fox-like eyes. She was wearing a red skin-tight suit. It was none other than Jessica, who had been defeated by Natsuki earlier. However, Jessica's appearance has greatly changed compared to before. Her hands, feet, chest, forehead, and face are all wrapped in bandages. She's not equipped with a CR unit anymore. Instead, she's equipped with a war chariot. It's completely red and has 2 cannons the size of tree trunks. One exaggerated thing. Natsuki glanced at Jessica's red mech. What? You want to drive this thing out and hit someone? Who knows? Maybe you really hit me. Ah, are you scared? Jessica revealed a twisted smile. I'm very strong now. I won't lose to you again. I'll lose to you. Jessica laughed maniacally. She opened her eyes wide and aimed the cannons at Natsuki. Finally, I can kill you. Along with this crazy sentence, a series of rhythmic clicking sounds could be heard. Jessica simultaneously opened up all the magazines on her body and launched a barrage of missiles that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Natsuki elegantly closed her parasol while looking at the incoming barrage of missiles. A wave of mana surged from her body. Chapter 1203. Swish, 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 swish. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of something breaking through the air came one after another without any pause. It reverberated in the vast night sky, accompanied by the sharp whistling of the wind and the sound of explosions. Bang, bang, bang. The screams of the damned magicians continued, accompanied by creepy laughter. Then, the sound of gunshots also sounded, filling the world with all kinds of noises, proving that the chaos on the scene had not stopped. In the underground corridor of the first office building of the Dim Branch Company, Irene drove the Pandaragon's engine and flew deeper into the building. At the same time, she heard all the sounds on the ground through the Dim's wide-area radio. Her eyes were full of solemnity. Just by listening to the sounds, Irene roughly knew how the attack and defense on the ground had become. Obviously, the Dim was at an absolute disadvantage. Just the continuous screams in the radio channel and the noise caused by the loss of contact one by one were enough for Irene to guess the situation on the ground. If this continues, the destruction of the Dim branch office was only a matter of time. This was something that Irene absolutely did not want to see. It was not that Irene was distressed about the Dim research facilities and buildings. Even if these were all destroyed, Irene would not even frown. The reason why she did not want to see it was only because of psychological reasons, the investigation and capture mission on Heim Island. When they first arrived at Heim Island, because of Wu Yan's intervention and the destruction of Albald, they declared a complete failure. The mission to capture the diva was also destroyed because of Natsuki's intervention. Now, even the dim branch office that was guarded by Irene herself was attacked by the elves who were supposed to be prey. This was really unbearable for Irene, who had never lost her composure like this before. So, that was why Irene pushed Will Scott, who was supposed to be her priority, out to take refuge alone. That was why Irene chose to return to the battlefield when she knew that the other party had Wu Yan and Natsuki on the scene. There was absolutely no chance of winning. It was all for the sake of fighting one last time. With that, even if I can't kill Shido and Natsuki, I can at least force them to retreat. If I'm lucky, I might be able to heavily injure Nightmare and Berserker. Irene narrowed her eyes. The engine behind her started running wildly again, making Irene turn into a stream of light and quickly shot into the depths of the ground. Not long after, an iron passageway appeared in Irene's vision. Irene saw the iron passage extending forward. Irene immediately flew over. Landing on the ground, Zhang Xian raised his head and looked at the metal passageway ahead. About 10 meters ahead, there was a small platform. On top of the round platform, there was a sophisticated instrument that looked like a cockpit. When she saw this instrument, Irene's gaze never left it. Obviously, this instrument was Irene's target. Walking to the side of the instrument, Irene directly sat in the cockpit-like seat of the instrument and closed her eyes. On its body, the platinum-colored surface of Pandaragon dimmed a little. On its four limbs, thin lines suddenly shot out and connected to the instrument. Suddenly, several indicator lights on the instrument's body flashed. In an instant, it lit up like a light bulb, and the screen on the instrument also lit up. Lines of data that made people dizzy flashed past, filling the entire screen. It maintained this state until 10 seconds later. The data on the screen froze for a moment before disappearing one after another, replaced by an image. A volley of bullets was fired. The wind was raging, artillery fire was raging, and smoke was rising from all directions. It was a chaotic scene like a war. It was the image of the battle between the elves and the DM magicians on the ground. Irene slowly opened her eyes, looked at the image on the screen. Her expression froze. She instantly issued the command to control the instrument. Looking at the chaotic battlefield and the sea of flames below, Wu Yan's black clothes fluttered in the wind. His body was as steady as MT Tai. Ignoring the storm that could blow away buildings, he scanned the battlefield, taking in everything that's going on in his mind. Kurumi's avatars destroyed the Bandersnatch one by one, and the DM magicians were blown away by Yeju Shi and Yeju Shixien. The enemy's numbers were steadily decreasing. Wu Yan's expression became more and more satisfied. He glanced at Natsuki, who was playing hide-and-seek with Jessica. Jessica flew into a rage, and Wu Yan scratched his cheeks. Looks like I don't have to do anything. At the same time, Kotori's anxious voice came from the wireless earpiece in Wu Yan's ear. There's a large amount of mana being generated. The magnitude of the reaction is even greater than the mana used to power Fraxinus. Be careful. A large amount of mana being generated? Wu Yan frowned. He sensed something, and he turned around. He looked at the only building left standing in the sea of fire. The first office building of the DM branch. Under Wu Yan's watchful gaze, the first office building of the Dem branch company started moving. No, it shouldn't have moved. It should be said that the entire first office building of the Dem branch company suddenly floated up and left the ground. Amidst the tremors of the ground, it flew up. Dense mana flowed around the building like a golden light. It covered the entire surface of the first office building. Under the effect of the mana, the red lotus flames on the building were extinguished, revealing the charred building. This is... Wu Yan and Kotori, who saw this scene through the big screen in Fraxinus, were all stunned. Bam! While everyone was still in a daze, the first office building suddenly exploded and fell apart in an instant. The deafening roar covered all the other sounds on the scene and attracted everyone's attention. Looking at the scene of the first office building exploding, the magicians of the Dem team cried out in shock. They didn't know what was going on either, even if they told the others. Wu Yin, on the other hand, saw some black shadows in the explosion of the #1 office building. When the smoke and dust from the explosion slowly dissipated, the existence of the first office building had been completely erased. What appeared in everyone's eyes were instruments that looked like automatic surveillance cameras. However, they were several times larger than automatic surveillance cameras and were the size of tables. "What's that?" Kodori couldn't help but ask. "How am I supposed to know?" Wu Yin bitterly laughed. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the flying machines. "But it's normal. This is the DM's territory after all. I don't believe they don't have any ultimate defense measures. Then you have to be careful," Kodori said in a deep voice. "If that's the case, then those things aren't simple." It's unknown if Kodori's words are true, but the instruments in front of them started circling in the air at an extremely fast speed. They all stopped at a fixed position. Immediately after, the two ends of the instrument flickered with light, emitting light, connecting with the light emitted from the instrument closest to it, forming a huge circle with light, emitting a strong light. Traces of terrifying energy fluctuations began to condense within the circle. "Oni-chan, be careful." Kodori's panicked voice startled Wu Yin. In the next instant, all the energy within the huge circle of light condensed into a deadly beam of light and shot out. Wherever it passed, the fighting automatons and Kurumi's doppelganger were crushed like dried twigs. Like a pillar holding up the sky, the huge beam pierced through space and evaporated the wind and atmosphere. It enveloped Wu Yan's figure. Chapter 1204. The torrent of light seemed to have pierced through the sky. From a circle that was emitting intense light, the torrent of light shot up into the sky at an oblique angle, shooting towards the direction of the sky. The surrounding wind and atmosphere were crushed into nothingness in the blink of an eye. The Bandersnatch puppets and Kurumi's clones were also annihilated in an instant. A huge hole was formed in the dark clouds that covered the sky, revealing the dark night sky inside. It was like a pillar of light that illuminated the world. It was very dazzling. However, the elves who saw Wu Yin being shot by such a terrifying torrent of light didn't think it was that dazzling. Natsuki and Kurumi's expressions changed. Yaguya and Shi-Xian also shouted in shock. "Master!" Seeing Wu Yin being swallowed by the torrent of light, the girls became anxious and no longer held back. Mana and spirit energy began to surge crazily from Natsuki, Kurumi, Yaguya, and Shi-Xian. The Guardian of Gold was summoned by Natsuki. With a slash, the Guardian of Gold cleaved the chariot-like body of Jessica in half. At the same time, the Guardian of Gold slashed a huge wound on Jessica's body so deep that her bones could be seen. Kurumi summoned her own carving emperor and fired bullets with the power of time at her avatars, causing all the Kurumi to be buffed. They madly attacked the remaining Bandersnatch machines and turned them all into scraps. Yaguya and Shi-Xian unleashed the full potential of their angels. Fierce whirlwinds swept across the sky above the Dem branch, blowing away a group of Dem magicians like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. In just a short moment, the magicians of Dem all disappeared from the scene, and the Bandersnatch troops were all turned into scraps. Jessica was also fatally injured by the sword of the Guardian of Gold. She fell into the sea of fire below and was instantly incinerated, until their enemies were dealt with. Natsuki, Kurumi, Yaguya, and Shi-Xian gathered together and stared at the torrent of light shooting towards the sky. They were trying to find the figure that was swallowed by the light. Natsuki and Kurumi knew that Wu Yin had an undying body. Even if his entire body was destroyed, it wouldn't take long for him to recover to a perfect state. Therefore, even though they were nervous, they weren't too worried. However, Yaguya and Shi-Xian didn't have it that easy. Their silver eyes couldn't help but ripple. They clenched their fists tightly. They were worried. This caused their hearts to clench. The Bawa sisters have only known Wu Yin for 2 months. However, they had to admit that Wu Yan's position in their hearts was no less than their most important sister. This person who saved them was both their master and their brother. In reality, He was their other half. If he really died in front of them, the sisters would probably fall into despair and cause the spirit crystal to reverse. Under the gazes of the girls, the torrent of light gradually calmed down and slowly dimmed. The pillar that was originally as big as the sky also slowly shrunk until it completely disappeared. The girls stared at the spot where Wu Yin used to be. They didn't even look away for a second. Finally, in their field of vision, an extremely familiar figure wrapped in white flames appeared in the gradually disappearing torrent of light, unscathed. Phew! Natsuki and Kurumi couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Yaguya and Shixien were even more delighted. Even Kotori, who was inside Fraxinus, was secretly relieved. Let alone the girls. Even Wu Yin himself couldn't help but calm down. He still felt some lingering fear. If he didn't use the white dragon's scorching flame to engulf his body in time, he would have burned away the light beam that came into contact with him. That light beam's power would have killed Wu Yin even if he didn't die once. He would have at least lost a layer of skin. To put it bluntly, that torrent of light was at least 100 times stronger than the mana condensing beam cannon that Albald fired at Wu Yin last time. Wu Yin wouldn't be worried about his life being in danger if that attack hit him, but he'd be in a lot of pain. Even Raphael can't hurt him. On the other side, in the basement of Dem's first office building, Irene looked at Wu Yan's unscathed appearance on the screen, and her expression changed. What's that white flame? I've never seen him use it before. Irene bit her lip. Could it be that he's never shown his full strength in front of me since the moment I met him? How is that possible? Irene's eyes were unfocused, filled with unwillingness. That's enough, Irene. An indifferent voice sounded from Irene's radio channel. Let's stop here. Irene was stunned. She took a deep breath and calmed down the violent trembling in her heart. She glanced at Wu Yan on the screen as if she wanted to remember him forever. She then replied in a normal tone. Got it. That's good. Will Scott smiled with satisfaction. Come pick me up first. We probably won't be able to stay in Tiangong City for the time being. Come back to the headquarters with me. Understood? Irene nodded and stood up. She hesitated for a moment and asked, Irene, what's wrong? Will we come back? Isn't that a given? Well, Scott was stunned for a moment before he laughed out loud. His voice was filled with joy and excitement. There are a lot of interesting things here. That's true. Irene glanced at the screen and muttered as if she was talking to herself. I will also become stronger. In the dark night sky, the light of dawn illuminated the DM branch that was full of ruins and had turned into a piece of scorched earth. As if to announce the end of the war, it clearly exposed everything that had happened in the night not long ago under the sun without hiding anything. In the air, all the Kurisans turned into black shadows and shot into her shadow. The raging wind slowly dissipated along with the sea of fire. Natsuki, Kurisan, Yagushur, and Shixien gathered around Wu Yan. Are you okay? I repeat, Master, are you okay? Yagushur and Shixien looked at Wu Yan to make sure he's not missing any parts. Wu Yan chuckled. I'm fine, don't worry, shaking his head. Wu Yan looked at the large pieces of trash that fell to the ground like broken surveillance cameras. He then looked at the entire branch office that was reduced to rubble, and he exhaled. Now that the branch is destroyed, the DM should restrain themselves and let us live peacefully for a while. That should be the end of this. Yiju Shur and Shixien nodded and couldn't help but smile. Natsuki opened her parasol with a look of disapproval. It's very difficult to live a peaceful life with you by my side. Wu Yan awkwardly smiled and sighed. He didn't have anything else to say. Wu Yan looked at Kurumi, who was quietly looking at the ruins below. He paused for a bit before continuing. You didn't find it, right? Yes. Kurisan nodded and smiled. It's like hubby said, there's no second elf here. Then what do you plan to do? Wu Yan scratched his face. Continue to search? For the time being, I don't think so. Kurumi turned around, and she met Wu Yan's gaze. She seemed to have gotten over something, and she smiled in a carefree manner. After all, I still don't know what I'm thinking. Is this okay? Of course. Kurisan tilted her head and showed a beautiful smile. Maybe I'll continue to search when I come back. But for now, I want to live peacefully Is that so? Wu Yin stared at Kurumi for a long time before he laughed. That's not bad. Chapter 1205. Now, all the branches of the DM industry in Tiangong City have been turned into scorched earth. Both the research facilities and the office facilities have been turned into ruins. Witnesses nearby at that time claimed to have seen a fire in the DM industry branch, which is very likely to be an important reason for the destruction of the place. As for whether the fire was man-made or a natural disaster, we don't know yet. The relevant departments have instructed us to investigate the matter further. It is worth mentioning that in this disaster, there were no casualties in the branch of the DEM industry in Tiangong City. As soon as the disaster appeared, all the staff in the industry were evacuated. I have to say that this is a miracle. Wu Yin was sitting on the sofa in the living room of Wu Yan's house. He munched on bread while watching the live broadcast of the destruction of the DM branch on TV. After a while, he shook his head and sighed in disappointment. In the end, what's the point of this report? It's not clear at all. Then what do you want them to report? A live broadcast of the battle between the elves and the magicians? Kotori put her hands on her hips and rolled her eyes at Wu Yin. Let alone Ratatosker, even the DM wouldn't expose something like this to the public. That's why I said it's meaningless. Wu Yin waved his hand listlessly. Even though the elves and magicians can't be exposed to the public, let's see if Wesson wants to see it on TV. But it's good to let Scott go on TV and see what he says. I can't help but want to see if he'll continue to put on that annoying smile when he's interviewed by the reporters. You really have a bad taste. Kotori sighed helplessly. Wu Yin chuckled maliciously. If it was anyone else, their face would be as dark as charcoal, even if they didn't go berserk on the spot. However, if it was Wesson, he might actually laugh and say something like, "There's nothing we can do about it." Then, he'll be slandered by malicious speculations. For example, his own territory was destroyed. There must be something going on behind the scenes. Maybe Westcott set fire to DM's branch office himself, or something like that. In this world, there are always people who are bored. They're always looking for something to do. Wu Yin didn't mind seeing if Wesson could still laugh in the face of public opinion. No wonder Kotori said he had a bad taste. However, after hearing what Wu Yin said, Kotori understood. Kotori understood what he meant. Well, Scott should have been interviewed since such a big thing happened in the Dem branch. But he's not on TV now. Looks like he probably left already. Wu Yin crossed his arms and shrugged. He actually ran away without saying anything. As a villain, isn't he a little too unqualified? At the very least, he should have said, "I'll definitely be back," right? Wu Yin didn't know that the joke he made just now was pretty much on the mark. Whatever the case may be, before the branch company is rebuilt, they probably won't bother us anymore. Wu Yin stretched his back, and he looked refreshed. Even if the buildings can be repaired quickly with the display device, it's not that easy to rebuild the operation of the research facilities. We don't have to worry about a magician or two popping out of nowhere and threatening to arrest us when we're out on the streets. Kotori, Yoshihara, and Yuzan were speechless when they heard what Wu Yin said. Toka and Yoshino, on the other hand, were very happy. "Oh, that's great." Toka tilted her head as she chewed on a meat bun. "The robot army is very annoying. It's best if we don't see them again." Yoshino nodded. He agreed with Toka's words. Before she met Wu Yin, and before her spirit chi was sealed, Yoshino was attacked by the magicians many times. She didn't even fight back. She was the one who took the beatings. Although One was kind-hearted, even if she did not hate the existence that had been trying to kill her, she would definitely have a good impression of it. Of course, it was the AST that attacked Yoshino, not the DM, but it wasn't that far off. No matter how one looked at it, DM was a lot worse than AST, and also a lot more dangerous. Even if Yoshino was already a powerhouse at the peak of the 8th rank and didn't need to fear any magician, even if Irene came, Yoshino would still be afraid of magicians. Kurumi couldn't help but rub Yoshino's head. Yoshino was startled and surprised. Aside from Yoshihara and Yuzan, who joined after Kurumi left, Wu Yin, Kotori, and Toka, who were familiar with Kurumi, looked at each other with surprise. Kurumi. Wu Yin moved closer to Kurumi and looked around. He was hesitant. Are you really Kurumi? Why do you ask? Kurumi touched her cheeks with a strange expression. Could it be that there's something wrong? Is there something wrong? I guess so. Wu Yin scratched his head. I keep feeling that you're not only more humane than before, but you're also much gentler. Kotori, Toka, and Yoshino immediately nodded, indicating that they also thought so. Kurumi blinked and gracefully pursed her lips into a smile. Oh, is that so? Kurumi blushed, and she acted like a pretty girl from a wealthy family. She shyly looked at Wu Yin with fluttering eyes. Then, Hubby-sama, do you like me like this? Wu Yin almost lost his cool and started drooling when he saw Kurumi's blushing cheeks and mesmerizing eyes. He coughed and turned his head away in a huff. I like you no matter what you look like. Kurumi's eyes turned into crescent moons. Wu Yan's words made her happy. Toka, Yoshino, Yagoya, and Yushin looked at him with envy. Kotori even snorted. She didn't mince her words. You only know how to talk sweet nothings and deceive innocent girls all day long. Wu Yan was speechless. At this time, Meijio, who had been sitting quietly at the dining table and eating breakfast without saying a word, raised her head. Her intoxicating voice echoed clearly in everyone's ears. Thank you. Everyone was slightly startled. Then, they looked at each other and smiled. Whether it was Meijio or all the elves present, they all knew Wu Yin proposed to destroy the DM branch because he was afraid the elves in the modern realm would be killed by the DM. He was also worried that Yoshino and Yuzan would be hurt if they were alone. But the main reason was for Meijio. Ratatasker's display device was more advanced than the DEM's, so it had always been able to detect the location and existence of the elves in the real world before the AST in DEM. With Ratatasker around, the elves were usually found a little faster than the AST in DEM. Yagia and Yushin also stayed by Wu Yan's side. They didn't leave his side much. Thus, Wu Yan didn't really care about the DEM's threats. But Wu Yan still decided to destroy the DM branch in Tiangong City. He was afraid that Meijio, who was alone, would be targeted by the DEM again. This was something that everyone present understood. Meijio knew it herself. She knew that the man in front of her had always been protecting her. Meijio's heart had long melted. Meijio stared at Wu Yan with her bright silver eyes. She looked at Wu Yan quietly until Wu Yan felt awkward. Then she giggled and smiled. Today is the opening day of the Tianyang ceremony. Meijio looked at Wu Yan as if she had made a decision. She spoke softly with hope on her face. Can you listen to my wish? Chapter 1206. Heavenly Palace City, Heavenly Palace Square. As the most famous, largest, and best square in Heavenly Palace City, Heavenly Palace Square was not often used as a venue for large-scale events like other squares. However, once an event was held in Heavenly Palace Square, it was definitely an event that could excite all the residents of Heavenly Palace City. And the annual Tianyang Festival, which was jointly held by 10 high schools in Heavenly Palace City, happened to be held here today in the entire square of the Heavenly Palace. Except for the passageways used for passage, every place had been occupied by the booths set up in advance and the stages set up for the activities held by the various schools. It was almost impossible to find any empty space. The students and teachers of the 10 high schools had all entered the Heavenly Palace Square in advance. Except for those who had nothing to do, all the staff who were arranged to be in charge of the booths or activities had arrived at their respective workplaces early, waiting for the official opening of the Tianyang ceremony. Not only the students of the 10 high schools, but also the residents of Heavenly Palace City had come here early. They were in a standby state, ready to flood into Heavenly Palace Square at the moment of the opening of the Tianyang Festival. Even some tourists who heard the news were waiting expectantly. From this, it could be seen how famous and popular the Tianyang Festival in Heavenly Palace City was before the opening of the Tianyang Festival was announced in a carefully designed booth belonging to Lichon High School. In a large booth that looked like a restaurant, Wu Yin, who was the executive committee member, came here to inspect the opening before the opening and was almost blinded by the scene inside. Around the restaurant-like stalls, there were various simulation stalls lined up in an orderly manner. There were simulation stalls that specialized in octopus, simulation stalls that sold crepe, and various other game stalls that sold various types of entertainment. These simulation booths all belonged to Lichon High School. Although the Tianyang Festival was a large-scale event that was popular in Heavenly Palace City, and even people outside Heavenly Palace City had heard of it, in the end, it was still a cultural festival. Since it was a festival then, of course, it was necessary to eat and drink, which was necessary. So, these booths were normal booths, and there must be booths in other high school sections. However, the simulation booth where Wu Yin was now was very unique. On this point, just look at the title on the signboard outside the simulation shop. Maid Cafe. That was right. It was the legendary Maid Cafe, one of the indispensable Mo elements of the 2D world. It was such a shining signboard. Wu Yin, who was supposed to check every stall from the beginning, was instantly distracted. Moreover, without even thinking, he directly abandoned the other stalls and headed straight for this place. Then, Wu Yin, who had just walked through the door, was immediately captivated by the scene in front of him. He completely forgot about his duties. "Welcome, Master." In the center of the hall, beautiful girls from Lichon High School were lined up neatly. They were wearing maid outfits with lace and aprons and adorable hair ribbons on their heads. They bowed respectfully to Wu Yin as he walked through the door, calling out to him. Listening to the tender voices that filled the entire hall, Wu Yin's heart rippled, and he couldn't move his eyes away. These female students from Zen High School who were in charge of the Maid Cafe were carefully selected from various grades, classes, and classrooms of Zen High School. Each and every one of them had a dazzling appearance, coupled with their maid outfits. How could any man not be attracted to them? What's more, the 5 girls in front of all the maids were people he knew: Kurumi, Toka, Yagoya, Shishin, and Shirori. A total of 5 girls who were more beautiful than the other girls lined up side by side, facing the door. Like the head of the maids, they respectfully bowed to Wu Yin. Their greeting of master made him feel very sweet inside. Even Wu Yin, who spent every day with the 5 girls, was like this. One could imagine what kind of grand occasion it would be when the Tianyang Festival officially opened. Wu Yin has only seen such a grand occasion once. It was in the Magic Catalog world, during the Midsummer Festival of Tokawadai High School. Now, seeing such a grand occasion again, Wu Yin was extremely moved. He almost knelt down and kowtowed. Too bad. This kind of touching feeling was quickly dispelled by Shirori, who noticed Wu Yin's arrival with a single sentence. "Shido?" Shirori looked at Wu Yin, who was standing at the door, with a surprised expression. She checked the time. "The festival hasn't opened yet, right? Let's practice a bit more before we start, okay?" It seems that the greeting was just for practice. It wasn't specifically for Wu Yin. Wu Yin's excitement instantly dropped to the bottom. His shoulders drooped. He weakly waved at Shirori and the others and squeezed out a smile. "I'm just here to check on the situation before the festival." "Oh, right. I almost forgot you're a committee member." Shirori patted her head. She looked a bit annoyed. Obviously, she's worried a lot about the Tianyang Festival. "So, how's the practice?" Wu Yin patted his cheeks to cheer himself up. "There's not much time left before the festival starts." "Is there enough time?" "It's about time." Shirori looked around at the neat rows of maids behind her. "It's a bit rushed, but it's okay now." "No, not yet." Before Shirori could finish her words, Kurumi, who was as beautiful and elegant as a flower, opened her mouth and interrupted Shiori's words. "The practice of welcoming guests is over, but the practice of entertaining guests is not over yet." "Entertaining guests?" Shirori was stunned. She was at a loss. "Isn't it similar to being a waitress? You just have to call the guests master when you're greeting them, right?" There's always something different." Kurumi closed her eyes, tilted her head, and smiled. "Why don't we practice how to entertain guests as well?" I don't have any objections." Shirori looked at Kurumi in confusion. "But how do we practice?" Kurumi looked at Wu Yin with an expression that says, "I was waiting for you to say that." She maintained her elegant smile as she looked at Wu Yin. Her wine-red eyes flashed with a smug glint. "How about we let our committee member be the guest for a while, and then we'll entertain them?" Wu Yin was stunned. he pointed at his own nose. I'll be the guest. That's not bad. Yakuya stood up. He raised his head proudly. Instead of calling those commoners master, why don't we, the true master of the Bawu sisters, be the first guest? I agree. Shixien softly chuckled. Her silver eyes were filled with joy. Although it's a job, serving the master is the true goal of Yejuya and Shixien. I want to try it too. Toka raised her hand excitedly. She looked like a primary school student. Her naive and romantic personality was on full display. Shido used to make food for me. It's my turn to help him this time. That's how it is. Seeing that Toka, Yeju Sure, and Shixien had all voted in favor, the smile on Kurumi's face became even wider. What do you think, ladies? In the team, the group of maids suddenly looked at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. It's not that they didn't want to entertain Wu Yan, it's just that they've been dragged into the whirlpool of jealousy. Toka is Wu Yan's girlfriend, Kurumi is Wu Yan's fiancée, and according to the Bawu sisters, they're Wu Yan's slaves. This complicated relationship has been spread throughout Lichon High. There's no way they didn't know about it. Kurumi's suggestion is to compete for favor. If Wu Yan knew what these maids are thinking, he would be dead meat for sure. Shiori seemed to have thought of this as well. Her expression became unnatural. She glared at Wu Yan and waved her hand lazily. In that case, Tokazuki-san, you could try to entertain Shido. Yes, this. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. What about me? Chapter 12:07. Come, master, Kurumi snickered as she used her cutlery to pick up a piece of cake and delivered it to Wu Yan's mouth. Sure Dao. No, master, Toka scooped up a piece of bread and delivered it to Wu Yan's mouth. Master, I repeat, master, Yagiya and Yushin used their utensils to scoop up some spaghetti. They looked at Wu Yan with the same resolute expression. Then, they brought the spaghetti to Wu Yan's mouth. Wu Yan was sweating profusely as he looked at the cake, bread, and spaghetti in front of his mouth. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and laughed dryly. I'll eat all of them. Don't worry, okay? All of them. Yakuya frowned and nodded unwillingly. That's not impossible. Question. Shixien continued to stare at Wu Yan. Then, master, who will you eat first? The 4 elf girls who delivered the food to Wu Yan's mouth started acting like a storm is brewing. Wu Yan wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Is it important who I eat first? It's important, the 4 elven girls said. Everyone, including Kwang San and 10 Fragrances, spoke in unison. Very important. Wu Yan forced a smile, as if he accepted his fate. He picked up a small bowl and mixed Kurumi's cake, Toka's bread, and the Baku sisters' spaghetti together. He gulped it down with a bitter expression. Eating dessert, coarse pastries, and a meal at the same time, even if it wasn't poisonous, it still didn't feel good. On the side, the maid from Raisin High looked at Wu Yan's sour face. They couldn't help but laugh. Wu He sure is popular. This is Shiraba, right? How about this? We won't be a playboy anymore, right? The maids in charge of the cafe came from different classes. They were different from the classmates who saw Wu Yan being intimate with the elven girls every day. Because they weren't familiar with him, their comments weren't that bad. Only Shiori, looking at this scene, he first glanced at Kurumi, Yakuya, and Shixien. Then, he glanced at 10 Fragrances, who only knew how to pass him bread made of soybean flour, and sighed. The enemy is strong, 10 Fragrance. You need to work harder. Perhaps she heard Shiori's muttering. 10 Fragrance angrily cut off a bigger piece of bread and put it in Wu Yan's mouth. Kurumi, Yakuya, and Shixien raised their utensils again as if they had made an agreement. Wu Yan's face turned green. He couldn't be mixing cake, bread, and pasta until the Tianyang festival started, right? Era, what's wrong? Seeing Wu Yan's ashen face, Kurumi's eyes curved into crescents. She was clearly enjoying herself. Wu Yan gnashed his teeth. Speaking of which, the one who suggested this was Kurumi. Could it be that Kurumi made such a suggestion just to mess with him? What kind of black-bellied person was this? Wu Yan picked up the small bowl with tears in his eyes. He wanted to continue his journey of mixing dishes. However, A sweet voice accompanied by another utensil was placed in front of Wu Yan's mouth. Ah! Wu Yan subconsciously opened his mouth and sucked the food that came out of nowhere into his mouth. Only when the food entered his stomach did he react. He looked at the source of the sound, and he saw a beautiful face with bright silver eyes and long violet hair. Wu Yan, Kurumi, Toka, Yagoya, and Yushin flinched. They all had shocked expressions on their faces. Meijio. Hello, everyone. Meijio greeted them with a smile. She didn't seem to realize her sudden appearance surprised them. She had a sweet smile on her face. Who is she? What a beautiful person. When did she come in? She's wearing the Dragon Gut Temple Girls Academy uniform. She must be the eldest daughter of the Dragon Gut Temple Girls Academy. She seems to be very close to Wu He. She also did that for Wu He. Could it be Wu He's? The maids and girls were shocked and began to talk among themselves. They glanced at Meijio and then at Wu Yan. Their gazes gradually changed. Meijio's sudden appearance and intimate feeding made them think that Wu Yan was a playboy again. Wu Yan was filled with grievances when he heard the girls' disdainful gazes. He had nowhere to vent his grievances. He could only smile bitterly. At this moment, above the heavenly palace square, a loud voice that was amplified by a loudspeaker resounded throughout the entire heavenly palace square and into the ears of everyone in the heavenly palace square. The 25th Heavenly Palace High School Joint Cultural Festival, Tianyang Festival, officially open. Oh! Almost at the same time, in the heavenly palace square, everyone raised their hands and cheered loudly, causing the entire heavenly palace square to be filled with deafening cheers that soared into the sky, accompanied by fireworks that bloomed in the sky above the heavenly palace square. It's open. Shurji reacted and quickly shouted, Everyone, hurry up and get ready to welcome the guests. Yes. Era. Kurumi put down her utensils regretfully. She looked at Wu Yan and Meijio as if she saw through something. She pursed her lips and stood up. Well then, I'll go to work first. Have a good time, hubby. I have to start my journey to hell and call the mortals master. I don't want to, but I have no choice. Goodbye. See you later. Goodbye, Shido. Yiju Sure, Shi Xian, and Teninsense also looked reluctant, but they still stood up and walked with Kwang San to the main group. Wu Yan curled his lips and looked at Meijio. Meijio felt Wu Yan's gaze and immediately turned to Wu Yan. She smiled sweetly, which made Wu Yan feel strange. Meijio, doesn't she hate men? Wu Yan and Meijio walked side by side in a crowded street filled with stalls. It looked like they were on a date, but the atmosphere between them was a bit strange. While walking on the street, Wu Yan kept looking at the stalls around him, but it's obvious that he's not paying attention. From time to time, Wu Yan glanced at Meijio, but Meijio seemed to be able to feel Wu Yan's gaze and smiled sweetly at him. Looking at Meijio like this, Wu Yan didn't know how many question marks were piled up in his mind. This wasn't the first time he had his suspicions. Is this person really Meijio? If that's the case, isn't his attitude towards me a little strange? Usually when Meijio noticed that he was peeking at her, she would say something like, Can you stop looking at me with that disgusting gaze? What exactly went wrong? Could it be that his brain had been damaged by AI Lien? What he didn't notice is that it's not like Meijio could feel his gaze every single time. It's just that Meijio has been looking at him the whole time. She didn't stop for even a second. She only opened her mouth after a long while. Will you come later? Wu Yan paused for a bit before he recalled something. He shrugged with a smile. Don't worry, I will. Wu Yan turned around and looked at Meijio. But haven't you been hiding your true identity? You'll be exposed if you perform on stage. It's okay. Meijio shook her head and chuckled. Originally, I hid my identity just to prevent others from discovering that Tempting Knight Meijio is Xiao Dai Tsukino. Now half a year has passed. Every time I sing, I will use my spiritual power to make the people who listen to the song gradually forget the existence of Xiao Dai Tsukino. Even if my identity is exposed, no one will discover that I am Xiao Dai Tsukino again. I see. Wu Yan sighed. Well, since it's your own decision, I won't oppose it. Meijio giggled as she stared at Wu Yan. Her eyes are filled with emotions. Chapter 1208. Heavenly Palace Square. It's been 3 hours since the official opening of the Tianyang Festival. The official opening of the Tianyang Festival was at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, 3 hours have passed, and it's noon in the Heavenly Palace Square. Generally speaking, it should be lunchtime at this time. However, it was absolutely impossible for those who participated in the Tianyang ceremony to not buy something to eat from surrounding stalls. Even if they didn't, they could have their lunch directly at the stalls. Therefore, the Tianyang Square was still very lively. Besides, for most people, it's not time for lunch. That was because they had more important things to attend to in the center of the Heavenly Palace Square. There's a large venue. It's the only venue in the Heavenly Palace Square that has its own stage and spotlight. At this moment, many people in the Heavenly Palace Square are walking towards the central venue as if they've made an appointment. Their faces are filled with extreme fanaticism. The kind of fanaticism is much more intense than when the Tianyang Festival officially opened. Because in the central venue, the real highlight of the Tianyang Festival is about to start. The Tianyang Festival will be held for 3 days. During these 3 days, there will be a large-scale performance in the central venue. It's the most attractive part of the Tianyang Festival every year. On the first day of the Tianyang Festival, the performance in the central venue is mainly about music. Of course, this isn't the main reason why the people in the Heavenly Palace Square are so fanatical. In the past, the Tianyang Festival always had a musical performance. People who know this clearly will look forward to it, but they won't go crazy. The real reason why the people here are so fanatical is because of a piece of news. The mysterious and popular idol who has never revealed her true appearance and background, Temptress Maiden, will be in the central venue today as a student. She'll be participating in the performance on the stage. She'll be walking to the front stage. This is the real reason why the people attending the Tianyang Festival are more fanatical than in the past years. Along the passageways leading to the central venue, there's a lot of people rushing towards the central venue. Among them, many people's clothes are embroidered with the words Temptress Maiden and pictures related to her. These people, they are Meiden's hardcore fans who gathered here because they like her songs. Among these fans, some of them are members of Meiden's fan club. They've attended Meiden's concerts more than once and seen her true appearance. Most of them haven't even seen Maiden before, but they're addicted to her songs. Today, after hearing that Maiden was going to perform on stage, these fans all rushed over. Not only did they want to listen to Meiden's song live, they also wanted to see Meiden's true appearance. It wasn't just the fans. Even the relevant personnel from various TV stations had come all the way here with their video cameras. They were prepared to record Meiden's performance on the stage. Most of them were directly broadcasting it live. This was natural. No one in the TV station would miss the opportunity to report on a super popular idol who had never revealed his true appearance. This was also an extremely hot topic, and the ratings would definitely not be low. Meiden's people's fans, SSSSSSS fans. By the time all of the audience had entered the central arena, more than an hour had passed. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, this performance officially began. In the audience, countless light sticks were swinging rhythmically. The audience cheered one after another, causing the people performing on the stage to be nervous and excited at the same time. Because Maiden would be performing on stage, the number of people who came to watch the performance this time was much more than any other Tianyang festival in the past. Meiden's fames had won them a lot of applause. They even had the chance to appear on TV. It was a chance for them to become famous. As a committee member of the Tianyang ritual, Wu Yin was able to enter the special passage above the audience and enjoy the treatment of a VIP seat. It's a bit far from the stage, but it's a good position to have a good view of the entire stage. It's a pretty good position to sit in. Many people who had finished their performances and those who were about to perform also appeared here to watch the stage. It seemed that they also wanted to see the legendary mysterious idol perform on the stage. Wu Yin looked around at the audience and the performers. Then, he leaned on the railing and looked at the stage. Maiden stood quietly in the backstage passage. She was wearing a dress the same color as her hair. There was no accompaniment or dance partner beside her. Her bright silver eyes were full of anxiety. Meijio planned to perform on the stage alone because she wanted to do something. It was something she had always wanted to do, but didn't dare to do. Next up, Dragon Gall Temple Women's Academy. Seduce Meijio. Oh, 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 oh. The audience cheered louder than before. Meijio's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't help but feel nervous. Meijio didn't feel nervous on the stage. She didn't even feel this way when she was still the Xiao Dai Yunos. Now, she was really nervous. However, Meijio was still a popular singer on the stage. She took a deep breath and suppressed the nervousness in her heart and the uneasiness in her eyes. She showed a beautiful smile and walked onto the stage. Meijio. The fans who had attended Meijio's concerts shouted when they saw her on the stage. The rest of the fans knew who she was. On the stage, that beautiful girl who was like a goddess was their idol for a long time. Immediately, deafening cheers filled the entire arena. The spotlight focused on Meijio. The camera flashes kept flashing. All the cameras were aimed at Meijio. She was the most dazzling star in the audience. Standing at the center of the stage, Meijio scanned the audience. Then, she looked at Wu Yin, who was standing at the entrance. Noticing Meijio's gaze, Wu Yin grinned and made a victory sign. Meijio's suppressed nervousness and anxiety dissipated, leaving behind only tenderness and tenderness. Meijio recalled every time she met Wu Yin. Every time they talked, every time he looked forward to her, and every time he protected her. She clenched the microphone in her hand. Her eyes were full of ripples. He said he wanted to hear me sing with my own voice. I wanted to respond to his expectations. He said he would wait until he heard my real voice. I wanted to respond to his waiting. I didn't want to lie to myself. I wanted to sing with my real voice. Even if the whole world abandoned me, he will definitely protect me just like he did then. Because he was a different kind of man. Meijio pressed a hand on her chest. She closed her eyes and smiled. Her red lips moved. Turn the shower head. Turn it into a microphone. Sing in the bathroom. La la la. La 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 sing. Beautiful music and light singing reverberated throughout the arena. Hearing this voice, the audience was stunned. Even Wu Yin was stunned. This voice was different from Meijio's usual voice. Although it was still beautiful, it lacked the numbing feeling. But it was undeniable that it was beautiful. The audience shook the light sticks in their hand again. The enthusiasm on their faces didn't lessen. Wu Yin looked at Meijio in a daze. Then he smiled and closed his eyes. He listened carefully to Meijio's song. The echoing timbre is somewhat special, intoxicating and joyful. I still remember how I felt at that time. Let me sing a song for you, and let's sing together, counting the stars in the night sky. That's the best gift. After the last note of the song, Meijio slowly opened her eyes. Then Meijio. The cheers and support from the audience instantly surrounded Meijio. Meijio was stunned as she looked at the fans who were as passionate as they were at her previous concerts. She lifted her head in disbelief and looked at Wu Yin. When she saw Wu Yin applauding with a gentle smile on his face, Meijio started crying. A genuine and pure smile slowly appeared on his face amidst the cheers of the entire crowd. Chapter 1209. Miss Meijio, why did you want to hide your true identity? Isn't being famous something every idol wants to see? Why do you want to go to the stage now? Is there any inside story? Please tell us. Miss Meijio. Miss Meijio. At the backstage of the Heavenly Palace Square's Central Hall, Meijio had just finished her performance. When she walked backstage, a group of reporters from all over the place immediately swarmed over like bees that had smelled the fragrance of flowers. They instantly surrounded Meijio without any explanation. Sorry. Please make way. Please make way. Miss Meijio needs to rest. Please make way. Backstage, some staff members who seemed to be waiting for the reporters to appear immediately stopped all the reporters who were about to surround Meijio. Apparently, they had been specially instructed to separate the crowd and squeeze out a path for Meijio to pass through. Miss Meijio, please answer our questions. Miss Meijio, Please. Miss Meijio. Miss Meijio. Amidst the shouts of the surrounding reporters, Meijio maintained an extremely sweet smile on her face. Although she didn't answer the reporters' questions, she didn't feel annoyed by the annoying reporters at all. Obviously, Meijio was in a good mood at this moment. No, Meijio didn't know she could be in such a good mood. Therefore, Meijio smiled at the camera in front of her and said mischievously, "Well, we have plenty of time to spend together. Please don't be in such a hurry, okay?" After saying that, Meijio's bright silver eyes rippled slightly, and she narrowed her eyes with a smile. "Now, I have more important things to do. I need to do it." More important things? The reporters and the staff were all stunned. While they were still in a daze, Meijio walked through the backstage and into the private lounge. The noise behind Meijio gradually faded away until there was no sound at all. Meijio breathed a sigh of relief. Meijio raised one of his hands and looked at it. The scene of his arm trembling was clearly imprinted in Meijio's eyes, causing Meijio to laugh bitterly. Meijio was a mysterious idol. Before today, people didn't even know what Meijio looked like. They didn't even know Meijio's personality. Probably no one would have guessed that the super popular idol in their hearts was actually a lesbian lover who hated men and loved women. Although most of the reporters were women, there were many men as well. She was surrounded by so many men all of a sudden. They kept talking to her and squeezing toward her. If it wasn't for the fact that Meijio's knot in her heart had truly been untied through that song, it wouldn't have been strange if she had directly used the power of the fairy. However, Meijio was surprised that she could actually tolerate a group of men surrounding her, but she also felt a little happy. After all, this proved that she was gradually walking out of the shadow in her heart. However, Meijio still didn't want to get close to men. "I thought you'd be in a good mood. Why do you look so complicated?" Just as Meijio was immersed in her inner world, a familiar voice suddenly reverberated in front of her, waking her up. Meijio's eyes lit up, and her expression was instantly filled with a carefree smile. Meijio raised her head and looked in front of her. In the next moment, the person who appeared in front of her was the person in her memories. Looking at Meijio, Yin couldn't help but smile when he saw the sincere smile on her face. He recalled what Kotori told him earlier. Go see Meijio immediately. Seal her spiritual energy. Yan's brain short-circuited when he heard Kotori's words through his earpiece. He almost couldn't wrap his head around it. Perhaps Kotori saw Yan's reaction on the screen in the command room. She didn't waste time and explained. Just now, Meijio's favorability towards you has reached the max. Huh? Yan had a hard time turning his head around when he heard Kotori's words. Yan's mind went blank again. Full? How is that possible? How would I know? Kotori answered without any sense of responsibility. Ever since you asked Natsuki to rescue Meijio, Meijio's favorability towards you has been slowly increasing. Just now, it suddenly rose to the maximum. This? Yin scratched his cheeks. He didn't know what to say to that. Why is that? If you can read a girl's mind that easily, she wouldn't be a girl. Kotori pursed her lips. Anyway, Meijio's favorability towards you is full. Now is the best time to propose sealing her power. It's up to you. Begin, the battle between us. Recovering from his memories, Yin looked at Meijio. He hesitated for a bit before opening his mouth to say something. But Meijio moved. Meijio had a peaceful smile on her face. She rushed to Yin and hugged him before Yin could react. Her soft touch and her voluptuous breasts pressed down on his body, causing him to be stupefied. He reflexively hugged the body that pounced on him, and his mouth turned into an O shape. Not just Yin, even Kotori and the others who were watching the live stream in Fraxinus were flabbergasted. What's going on? Is this the benefit of a full favorability? Meijio rubbed her face against Yan's chest and murmured in an intoxicated manner. Is this the smell of a man? It's not that bad. This time, it's Yan's turn to be woken up by Meijio's words. Looking at Meijio's intoxicated expression, feeling that soft touch and the full and round body pressing against him, Yin felt like his tongue is about to get tied up. You're really Meijio? Hearing this, Mei Jiu could not help but laugh out loud. Is this your first thought? It's quite interesting. And no, Wu Yin didn't know what he's talking about. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He pushed Mei Jiu away with a weird look on his face. It's just that suddenly hugging me isn't something you would do, right? This is something that only you would do. Mei Jiu stuck out her tongue as if her prank had been discovered. Compared to the Mei Jiu of the past, her flirtatious behavior at that moment was simply too cute. Due to the sudden change in attitude, Wu Yin couldn't get used to it. His face was full of confusion. Since he couldn't figure out no matter how hard he tried, Wu Yin could only toss aside his doubts and helplessly shake his head. He met Mei Jiu's eyes, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. No matter what, let me congratulate you first. Congratulations on walking out of the shadow of the past. The song just now was very nice, very nice. I like it very much. Hearing this, Mei Jiu could no longer suppress the emotions in her heart. Tears welled up in her eyes, wetting those beautiful eyes. But Mei Jiu still kept smiling, smiling. Do you like it? My song. Didn't I tell you? Wu Yin smiled. I like it. Then, will you listen to me sing again? If you want, I'll listen. Then, will you still protect me when I need you like you did back then? Wu Yin paused. He finally understood why Mei Jiu's attitude changed so quickly. It was only because he had protected her when she needed it. Just like how a setback could make Mei Jiu hate men to the extreme, when Mei Jiu needed help, it could also make Mei Jiu fall in love with a person in an instant. She's like a child, amused. He patted Mei Jiu's head with pity. Under Mei Jiu's hopeful and nervous gaze, Wu Yin nodded. If you need it, I'm willing to protect you, Mei Jiu panted. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed Wu Yin on the lips without hesitation. In the dim passageway, the figures of a man and a woman overlapped and could no longer be distinguished from each other. Chapter 12:10. Above Heavenly Palace City, Fraxinus. Status: normal. Psychic reaction: completely disappeared. Final result: same as a normal human. Possibility of being an elf is 0. Coterie nodded in satisfaction as she listened to the reports of the Ratatoskr members. Finally, a smile appeared on her face. Target sprite: Diva. Seal successful. Yay! In the command room, all the members of Ratatoskr were cheering and high-fiving each other, their faces filled with joy. They were celebrating the end of their work. Ever since they discovered the identity of Mei Jiu, the problem of how to seal this troublesome elf had been pressing on everyone's mind. The people of Ratatoskr had always been troubled and depressed. It could be said that they had spent a lot of effort on this problem. Now, the diva has been successfully sealed. Even the Berserker, who is the #1 target of many elf organizations, has been successfully turned into a normal human. As the Ratatoskr members who resolved the elven disaster peacefully, there's nothing more joyous than this. Let alone the members of Ratatoskr, even Kotori, Shina, Night Moon, Shinzuki, Ling Yin, and the others couldn't help but smile. Unfortunately, their smiles froze when they heard the conversation between a man and a woman. Hey, honey, do you have any plans today? Plans? Yeah, if you don't have any, how about going shopping with me? Well, it's not that I can't, but aren't you a popular idol? Aren't you afraid of being in the headlines tomorrow? I'm not the same as I used to be. Even the worst scandal can't defeat me. As long as my honey is by my side, bring it on. I'm glad you said that, but I feel like if a scandal like that happens, I'll be the one who gets hurt the most. By the way, what's with the honey? Well, I also want to have a different way of addressing myself. Isn't that good? It's not. Bad. Everyone's expression fell. They looked at the center of the command room gloomily. There, Mei Jiu had a bright smile on her face. She squeezed her body against Wu Yan's and hugged Wu Yan's arm tightly. Wu Yan, on the other hand, had an unnatural expression. He smiled bitterly inside. Ever since Mei Jiu kissed him passionately and obediently put on the sealing bracelet and sealed her spiritual energy, this scene has been going on for a long time. It had been maintained until now, without stopping for even a moment. looking at Meiji, who had a hot body but behaved like a child. No one in Ratatoskr could relate her to the Meiji of the past. Hence, their faces were gloomy. Wu Yin was in a similar situation. Although he did kiss Meiji once after her performance, Meiji's change in attitude is a bit too drastic. Wu Yin still can't get used to it. He can only smile bitterly and perfunctorily under Meiji's passionate attacks. Come to think of it, there was nothing he could do about it. Kotori pursed her lips. She looked at Meiji as if she was trying to stop something. Perfect. Meiji, since you're here as well, there are some things I want to ask you. Meiji, who was squeezing her hot body against Wu Yin, was startled. She turned around in confusion. Ask? Ask what? That's a lot. Kotori knocked on the armrest of the command table and looked straight at Meiji. There are questions about your abilities, about your angelic abilities, and what you did in the past 6 months after you became an elf. There are many, many questions. However, let's put these questions aside for now. Kotori's tone suddenly changed and became serious. Now, what I want to ask is what happened when you became an elf. Wu Yin could feel Meiji tightening her grip on his arm. She furrowed her eyebrows, and a pained expression could be seen on her face. Even her breathing became a bit faster. Seeing Meiji like this, Kotori immediately shut her mouth. The command room also quieted down. No one dared to make a sound. Everyone present knew a little about Meiji's situation. Therefore, they also knew that when Meiji became a fairy, it was also when Meiji was disappointed in humanity and despaired of the world. Bringing up the past is tantamount to tearing open the wound in Meiji's heart. This isn't a small matter. Wu Yin frowned when he saw Meiji's pained expression. He held Meiji's hand. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Don't force yourself. Meiji felt warmth in her heart, and her expression softened. She looked at Wu Yin with a gentle gaze, and she shook her head. I sealed my spirit energy and became a normal person again. My voice recovered, and I was reborn. I don't want to be defeated by my past. Besides, Meiji tightened her grip on Wu Yin's arm. She smiled. You will protect me, right? Wu Yin grinned, but he didn't answer. However, Meiji could see a hint of determination in his wine-red eyes. How could she not know the answer? She hugged Wu Yin's arm affectionately. She looked at Kotori as if she was depending on him. That was half a year ago. Meiji fell in her memories and slowly spoke. At that time, everyone betrayed me. I lost my voice due to psychogenic aphasia. I also lost the motivation to continue living. I, who had lost everything at that time, I only wanted to end my life as soon as possible, to end my life of having nothing. There was a hint of sadness in her voice. Meiji lowered her voice and suddenly raised her head. But at that time, God appeared in front of me. God? Kotori's eyes sharpened. Wu Yin narrowed his eyes. Yes, God. Meiji nodded. He appeared in front of me in despair and said, Do you want the power to change the world? Wu Yin, Kotori, Shina, and the others looked at each other. They stared at Meiji and waited for her to continue. Then, he gave me a purple gem. Under everyone's gaze, Meiji recalled and answered absent-mindedly. That gem directly melted into my body and disappeared. In that instant, I became an elf and obtained a voice that could make everyone listen to my orders. Meiji recovered from her memories and looked at Kotori. That's the gist of it. Is that all? Kotori frowned. Is there any further explanation? For example, the appearance of that god? Appearance? Meiji said awkwardly. I'm not sure. Not sure. Meiji lowered her head apologetically. Although God appeared in front of me, he seemed to be covered in mosaics. I couldn't see what he looked like. Even his voice was strange. It felt unbelievable. Kotori pondered for a while and asked, Pixelate my entire body. Then, did you notice anything strange after you became an elf? For example, when you use your power, you lose your sense of self and only have the desire to destroy. No, I didn't, Meiji said confidently. After the first elf transformation, the method of using the elf's power was engraved in my mind. I can freely control the power in my body. This has never happened before. In other words, I'm the only one who can control my power. Coterie sighed and turned her head away in annoyance. What an unfair treatment. You should feel lucky. Wu Yin grumbled. If every human who obtained the power of the elves ran the risk of their spiritual power going berserk, who knows how many people would die? That's true. Coterie laughed bitterly. Chapter 12:11. But why didn't Mei Jiu experience the same symptoms as I did? After freeing herself from her personal emotions, Coterie tried to think rationally. We're both humans who obtain the power of fairies. Even though we have the power, we're still humans. Is it because of the different types of spiritual energy that causes the difference in power and nature? Or is it because of our physique? Even if you ask me, I wouldn't know the answer. Wu Yin shrugged as he replied nonchalantly. Perhaps it's because Phantom didn't completely master how to turn humans into elves 5 years ago and used you as an experiment subject. Now that she's mastered the trick to perfect elven transformation, maybe that's why Mei Jiu can perfectly control her power. Before Wu Yin could finish, Coterie glared at him coldly, forcing him to smile bitterly. Of course, this is just a conjecture. I am more inclined to believe that this change is due to the nature of the spiritual power. Wu Yin scratched his cheek. After all, the power of fire has always been one of the most destructive and unstable powers. You were only a small child when you turned into an elf, so you couldn't control your power well. The potential factor that caused your spiritual energy to go berserk accumulated in your body, resulting in the side effect of your spiritual energy going berserk the moment you turned into an elf. Wu Yin sighed and waved his hand lazily. Or is it possible that Phantom purposely allowed your sprite to have the side effect of going berserk? Coterie fell silent when she heard Wu Yin's words. Just like what Wu Yin said, Phantom, it's unknown whether it's a human or a fairy or some other kind of creature. Why would it want to turn humans into fairies? Why would it be willing to use its precious spirit crystals on human girls? These reasons are still a mystery to Wu Yin. Also, why did Phantom choose to bestow the spirit crystal to Kieran? Why did it turn Coterie and Mei Jiu into fairies? Was it randomly chosen, or did it have a special purpose? No one knew, including whether the Phantom was a friend or foe. It was the same. Maybe Phantom purposely let Coterie go berserk when she turned into a fairy. From then on, he would become a monster that only knew how to destroy. Who knows? Maybe he would destroy all of humanity. Or perhaps Phantom would choose to turn Mei Jiu into an elf. It wanted Mei Jiu, who saw humans as trash and toys, to take revenge on humans and influence the world. That's possible, right? There was too little information about Phantom. So far, they only knew that it had a spirit crystal that could turn humans into elves, and it was possible that it was still continuing to turn humans into elves. As for its purpose, it was still a mystery. Even Kurumi, who spent the most time with Phantom, didn't know much about it. It's obvious that Phantom has always been hiding in the dark. It doesn't want others to know what it's doing or what kind of existence it is. It's too dangerous to hide in the dark. It's no wonder Coterie. He believed that if the people of DM knew that Phantom might have more spirit crystals in his hands, then they would definitely list him as a target. Well, Scott, who has always been pursuing the power of the elves, will definitely do so. Hey, you too. While Wu Yin, Coterie, and everyone else in the command room were deep in thought, Mei Jiu hugged Wu Yin's arm and puffed up her cheeks. You guys, don't just ignore me and get lost in your own thoughts. It will make me feel uneasy. Mei Jiu pursed her lips as she stared at Wu Yin. Who is Phantom? What's with the berserk? Can you at least answer my question? Sorry. Wu Yin smiled bitterly. To put it simply, Phantom is the god that turned you into an elf. Coterie used to be a human, just like you. 5 years ago, she received the spiritual crystal from Phantom and became an elf, too. However, Coterie will go berserk after turning into a fairy. That's why we're all worried that you'll go berserk like Coterie when you use your fairy power. Will she go berserk the next time an elf appears? That's more or less the situation. I see. Meiju nodded her head in relief. She smiled happily, and she squeezed her body into Wu Yan's embrace. Honey, so you're worried about me. I'm so happy. But don't worry, I've controlled my power well. I've never gone berserk. Now that my spirit energy is sealed, you don't have to worry about me. That, Wu Yan's expression turned sour. I said we are worried about you, not I. Have you automatically ignored the word we? There's still too little information. Coterie pulled up a recording device and typed something on the keyboard. Her brows furrowed deeply as she looked at the few pieces of information about Phantom on the screen. If I can see the Phantom directly, I should be able to get a lot of information. Zhang Lixing thought to himself. Save it. Wu Yan shook his head like a wet blanket. We don't know if others have contacted Phantom before, but Kurumi, who has contacted Phantom the most, also said that every time she contacted Phantom, it was Phantom that took the initiative to find her. She didn't even know where she was. Besides, ever since Kurumi sealed her spirit energy, Phantom has completely disappeared. Wu Yan sighed. According to Kurumi, Phantom met Kurumi once before she left us. What? Coterie stood up from the podium and glared at Wu Yan. Why didn't you tell me something so important? If it was that important, I wouldn't have kept it a secret. Wu Yan curled his lips. When she contacted the Phantom, Kurumi said that it only brought her 2 pieces of information and then disappeared without a trace. She didn't even know the purpose of giving her the information. Do you think it would be useful to tell her such a thing? Useless? How could it be useless? Coterie slammed the armrest of her chair, her face full of anger. If we can find out where Phantom met Kurumi last time, we can send someone to investigate. Maybe we can find some clues. Come on. Wu Yan disagreed. Counting from the time when you were turned into an elf 5 years ago, the Phantom has been active in the Heavenly Palace City for at least 5 years, right? It's been 5 years, and only a blurry surveillance video of you being turned into an elf. Obviously, it's very cautious. Plus, Phantom must have known that Kurumi is on our side, but she still contacted Kurumi. She must have been very, very careful. It's impossible for her to leave any traces behind. Coterie choked, and she glared at Wu Yan. Then, she started yelling again. Who said that Phantom didn't leave any traces behind? Isn't it here? Coterie pointed at the stunned Meiju. Phantom erased my memories when I was turned into an elf. It might have manipulated Meiju's memories. Coterie looked at Meiju with a malicious expression. If we could do a thorough check on Meiju, we should be able to find something, right? Cold sweat trickled down Meiju's face. Wu Yan's heart skipped a beat when he saw Coterie in a dark state. He could only pray for Makoto. Chapter 12:12. Thanks to Wu Yan, Coterie, who was pretty much broken by Wu Yan, conducted a thorough examination of Meiju in the Fraxinus. In the end, they didn't manage to find anything. Meiju's memories were intact, and there was nothing missing. There were no signs of tampering, and there were no clues at all. This made Coterie extremely disappointed, and Coterie was furious. By the time Meiju was released from Fraxinus, the sun was about to set. Meiju was about to collapse. Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw Meiju leaning on him with a tired and fearful expression on her face. Are you all right? I'm fine. I am fine. Meiju tried to squeeze out a smile, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't. She could only sigh. But I'm so tired, I want to fall asleep on the bed. I think so too. Wu Yan bitterly smiled. Coterie is really something. All I did was refute her. Did she have to torture you like this? Wu Yan looked at Meiju. He couldn't bear to see her tired expression. You look really tired. Why don't I send you home? Really? Meiju's eyes lit up. Even her expression brightened. She threw herself into Wu Yan's arms. She rubbed her face against Wu Yan's chest like a puppy. Moi, my dear, you're so considerate. I say, are you really not worried, or are you faking it? Wu Yan quickly hugged Meiju as she threw herself at him. He had a bitter look on his face. If someone else sees this and recognizes my identity, then I'll be in big trouble. As a famous and popular idol, Meiju had been hiding her true appearance to carry out her activities as a singer. Therefore, basically, other than her name, not many people know what she looks like. But today, Meijio openly performed on the stage of the Tianyang Festival. Her true identity was revealed to the entire nation. Now, the situation was completely reversed. Those who didn't know what Meijio looked like were the real minority. Even though Meijio's auditory drug had disappeared, but her own miraculous voice had completely recovered. Through today's performance, her voice had completely spread throughout the country. In addition, Meijio's earth-shattering beauty was also exposed to the public. At this moment, Meijio's fans were definitely not any less than before. According to Radatasker's intel, even though Meijio's real face had been exposed for less than a day, the number of her fans was increasing like crazy. Some had become Meijio's fans because of her voice. Some fell in love with her because of her appearance. In short, even though her spiritual energy was sealed, she still relied on her own abilities to become a singer more famous than Xiao Dai Yuno, or even seductress Meijio. If someone caught Meijio throwing herself in his arms, it would definitely be taken in an instant and used as a scandalous photo, making Meijio famous once again. Half a year ago, Meijio lost her voice because of the scandal. She was betrayed and fell into despair. If something like this were to happen again, Wu Yin would have the urge to tear those fans and reporters to shreds. Her bright silver eyes landed on Wu Yan's face. Meijio seemed to be able to see through his thoughts as she revealed a joyful smile. You don't have to care about that kind of thing. Meijio held Wu Yan's hand and pressed it against her face. Even if I am betrayed by everyone again, I won't be disappointed in this world like before. Meijio closed her eyes. At this moment, her expression was very peaceful. At least, I know that if it's you, you will continue to protect me like before when I lose everything. Meijio opened her eyes and stared fixedly at Wu Yan's face. At that time, if no one listens to my singing anymore, I will only sing for you, okay? You. Wu Yan couldn't help but feel a strange heaviness in his heart when he heard Meijio's words. This kind of heaviness was not sympathy, nor was it unwillingness. It was responsibility. All this time, Meijio thought that she had nothing but her voice. This was because Meijio was not good at studying, nor was she good at sports. In other aspects, no matter which aspect it was, she was much worse than others. Ever since she was young, Meijio had received a lot of criticism, but only one person had ever received praise. That was Meijio could sing. Moreover, she sang better than anyone else. Because of this, Meijio naturally felt that she had no other advantages other than singing. Because of this, Meijio yearned to be a singer on TV. In order to sing, Meijio tried her best to memorize difficult music scores and complicated lyrics. In order to sing, Meijio memorized the performances of the idols on TV every day and made her own choreography. In order to sing, Meijio kept learning how the idols performed on stage and in front of the camera. Gradually, she began to imagine how she would perform on stage and in front of the camera and how she would be popular. It could be said that Meijio's entire life was dedicated to her singing. It was also dedicated to her only strength. Therefore, to Meijio, her voice was her everything. It was the value of her existence. Without her voice, Meijio's existence was worthless. This was the most fundamental belief and understanding that Meijio had since she was young. Therefore, Meijio had to sing. She had to sing to show her value. Heaven didn't disappoint those who worked hard. Meijio's hard work finally paid off. While others were still students, she successfully walked onto the stage and debuted as the idol she had been thinking about day and night. This achievement made Meijio ecstatic. At the same time, she realized the importance of her voice again. However, under such circumstances, a nightmare happened. In the end, Meijio was defeated by the ugliness of human nature. Not only was she slandered, but she was also betrayed by her fans. In the end, even her voice was taken away from her. Without her voice, she lost the value of her existence. Meijio realized this in her heart. One could only imagine how desperate she was at that time. Now that Meijio had once again obtained the only thing that made her worth in life, she vented it all on herself and used herself as the only thing that could prove her worth in life. How could Wu not feel responsible? She had to protect this beautiful girl who had the same values as a child. She only pursued the value of her existence. It was also to prove that she wasn't worthless. Wu Yin chuckled as Mei Jiao caressed his cheeks with her hand. I told you, you're not worthless. Looking into Mei Jiao's beautiful eyes, Wu Yan's expression was gentle. You won't lose everything just because you lost your voice. You won't lose your value just because you lost your fans. Even if you lose your voice and fans, you will still be beautiful. Wu Yin chuckled when he saw the ripples in Mei Jiao's eyes. If there really comes a day when you lose everything again, please come and find me. Not only will I protect you, but I will also listen to you sing. When you lose everything, I will also become your shelter. Please, please, don't forget. When she saw Wu Yan's gentle expression and heard his warm words, Mei Jiao's heart felt like it was being wrapped by something. It was an extremely hot stream of air. It was so hot that even Mei Jiao's heart was completely melted by it, suppressing her emotions. Mei Jiao bit her lips, and her eyes teared up. She reached out her hands and wrapped them around Wu Yan's neck. She pouted her lips, and she pulled Wu Yan's head down. Then, she kissed him without a word. At this moment, no matter how much he said, it was all in vain. This is the only way Mei Jiao can tell Wu Yan how she feels about him. Just like last time, Mei Jiao kissed Wu Yan. The only difference was that the kiss this time was more intense. Under the setting sun, they hugged each other and vented their emotions. Chapter 12-13. On the way home, Toka and Yi Juya stretched their bodies, showing off their voluptuous and slender bodies. If it wasn't for the Tianyang ritual, they would have attracted a lot of attention. Actually, when the two of them were stretching, Shi Xian, who was walking beside Yi Juya, was already attracted to them. To be more precise, she was attracted to Yi Juya's body. Her watery silver eyes shone with a wolf-like light that was completely uncharacteristic of a woman. I'm so excited to be able to see the curves of Yi Juya's body at such a close distance. It's such a blessing for me, huh? Yi Juya, who was stretching his body, stiffened and quickly shook his head. That's not the case. Xishuan's figure is the best. She's so voluptuous and full. Sigh. Although I'm happy that Yi Gaya can say that, in terms of cuteness, Yi Gaya is still cuter. That's not it. Shi Xian is the cutest. Master also likes Shi Xian's appearance. Refute. Master likes Yi Juya very much too. Shi Xian can see that. Is that so? Definitely. Agreed. Kurumi looked at Shirori with a puzzled expression as she watched Yeju Shur and Dushin enter their own world of flattery. Have the two of them always been like this? Hearing this, Shiori's expression suddenly became somewhat embarrassed. An awkward expression appeared on his face. As far as I know, yes, that. Shirori, who was holding her hand, also raised her hand weakly. Sister Yejuya and Sister Shi Xian's relationship is very good. Allah. Kurumi tilted her head and once again looked at the Bawu sisters who were surrounded by a pink atmosphere. She smiled meaningfully. I can tell. That's great, so energetic. 10 Fragrance looked at Yeju Shur and Shi Xian enviously. I'm already exhausted. 10 Incense had never participated in the Tianyang festival before, so she was naturally very interested in it. She spent the entire day playing, strolling around the food stalls, and eating to her heart's content. But after an entire day, even 10 Fragrance couldn't help but feel tired. Coupled with the work at the maid cafe, the 10 incense sticks were almost burnt to ashes. However, when the roof of Wu He's house appeared in front of everyone's eyes, even the position of the door was imprinted in 10 Incense's eyes. The scene that appeared in front of her made the listless expression on her face freeze in an instant. Her purple eyes were wide open. What's wrong? When the girls saw this, they all looked at the entrance of Wu He's house with puzzled expressions. When they saw what they saw, they were stunned. That was because they all saw it In front of Wu He's house, a man and a woman were hugging each other passionately. They were brazenly kissing each other with their lips overlapping. Also, the male lead is someone they are very familiar with. The female lead seems like she too. Wu Yin and Mei Jiao. After returning to Tiangong City, using the teleportation device from Fraxinus, the two appeared directly at the door of Wu He's house. Naturally, the two kissed passionately at the door of Wu He's house. And now, he had been caught red-handed by a group of young ladies who were staying with him. Sure Dao. Shirji's mouth was wide open. Master. The Bawu sisters also opened their mouth in an O shape. Alala. Kurumi covered her mouth in surprise. Wu. CMO Nai's face immediately turned red as he covered his eyes. They didn't expect their family member, the person they're most familiar with, to be kissing. They actually kissed a girl in front of their house. Moreover, the girl is a popular idol, Mei Jiao. 10 Fragrance's hands trembled as she looked at the two people who did not realize that someone was approaching them. An extremely uncomfortable feeling appeared in her heart, causing her to cry out without hesitation. Ew, what you two doing? There was a sudden loud cry. The man and woman who were immersed in the heat were so shocked that their shoulders trembled. They quickly separated and turned their heads to look at the source of the sound. Then, the girls' shocked expressions were imprinted into their eyes. Mei Jiao was stunned and speechless. You girls. Wu Yin tilted his head in a daze. Looking at the surprised faces of the girls, a bad premonition rose in his heart. Cold sweat started dripping down his forehead. Did they all see it? As soon as he said that, Wu Yin received angry glares from 10 Fragrance, Yeju Shi, and Shi Xian. Shiji looked at him with disdain. The 4 girls looked at him strangely, and Kurumi giggled. They silently told him that they all saw it. At this moment, Wu Yin felt like dying. 10 Fragrance, everyone. Mei Jiao was different from Wu Yin. After being stunned for a moment, she immediately greeted them with a cheerful expression. You're back already? It seems like the first day of the Tianyang ritual has already ended. Faced with Mei Jiao's friendly attitude, Toka quickly walked over and pulled Wu Yin and Mei Jiao apart. She spread her arms and stood between the two of them. She glared at Mei Jiao with eyes full of anger. Mei Jiao, what the hell are you doing? Before Mei Jiao could answer, the identical twin sisters rushed over and stood in front of Wu Yin. They looked at Mei Jiao in a fighting stance. Their eyes were full of vigilance. Why you actually dared to lay your hands on our master without the consent of us, the Bawu sisters? You are truly courageous, I'm annoyed. Because the other party is a famous idol and also an acquaintance, Shi Xian let her guard down and caused master to be tainted. Without Yeju Shi and Shi Xian's permission, Mei Jiao will not be allowed to approach master again. Mei Jiao looked at 10 Fragrance, Yeju Shi, and Shi Xian, who were full of hostility toward her. She was confused. What taint? It's just a kiss. Don't tell me you guys don't do it normally. Hearing Mei Jiao's words, the 8 Fragrance sisters' faces turned red. They obviously did it before. Kiss. 10 Fragrances frowned in confusion. What's a kiss? The air suddenly froze. Wu Yin couldn't help but turn his head away as tears started streaming down his cheeks. Speaking of which, he really didn't play the kissing game with 10 Fragrance. Mei Jiao's eyes widened slightly, and she couldn't help but laugh. What? So 10 Fragrance doesn't know what a kiss is? Is there a problem? Of course not. Mei Jiao looked at 10 Fragrance with a smile. She seemed to have thought of something, and her silver eyes lit up as she said this happily. If that's the case, why don't I teach 10 Fragrance how to kiss? What? Other than Toka, everyone else was stunned by Mei Jiao's words. Especially Wu Yin. He's on the verge of going hysterical. Mei Jiao, is she planning to eat both men and women? 10 Fragrance, who didn't know what a kiss was, didn't think much of it. However, she still felt that something was wrong. Why do you want to teach me how to kiss? Isn't that because 10 Fragrance doesn't know how to kiss? Mei Jiao acted like a philanthropist as she tried to entice him. So, isn't it natural for me, the so-called kiss expert, to be the one to teach Tixiang Chan? Is that so? Of course. Meijio immediately put her hands together in front of her chest, as if she was praying. She closed her eyes, pouted her lips, and moved closer to 10 fragrance. So, please, 10 fragrance. Learn and feel it. Seeing Meijio pouting her lips and moving closer to 10 fragrance's lips, everyone present was completely stunned. A strange feeling involuntarily rose in 10 fragrance's heart. Seeing that beautiful face getting closer and closer, 10 fragrance didn't know what to do and shook her head. Finally, she couldn't help but run away. Ah, wait, don't come over. Why? Why are you chasing us two? Fear. Shixien has a bad feeling. Ah, really? If that's the case, let me teach everyone how to kiss. Wow, haha. Seeing Meijio chasing after 10 fragrance, Yogi, and Shixien like a pervert, Wu Yin, Kurumi, Yoshino, and Shirori looked at each other and sighed. Chapter 12:14. In the sky above Tengu City, Fraxinus, Kotori, was the only one sitting on the platform in Fraxinus's command room. The rest of Radatasker's members weren't present. Due to the irregular occurrence of spacequakes, the precursors could only be predicted up to 10 minutes in advance. After a certain amount of time, there was no way to predict when the spacequakes would occur. Therefore, as an elven organization, the members of Radatasker generally did not have holidays. Their goal was to alert the elves of the spacequakes as soon as they occurred. That way, they would be able to monitor the elves in the outer realm and react accordingly. Therefore, if there were no special circumstances, at least 1 or 2 people would stay in the command center of Fraxinus and arrange for night watch and shifts. Today, however, the diva that Radatasker racked their brains over, the berserker who was listed as the number 1 target to be dealt with, Yakuya and Yuhan, were captured. To celebrate, Kotori gave everyone in Radatasker a day off and let them get off work early. Of course, if the spacequakes were to occur, the alarms connected to every Radatasker member's radio would sound simultaneously. Fraxinus would then use the teleportation device to retrieve everyone and deal with the elves. If the spacequakes didn't occur, then the members of Radatasker would be able to enjoy this rare holiday. However, even though Kotori gave everyone in Radatasker a day off, she never thought of giving herself a day off. Sitting on the command center, Kotori recalled the information she got from Yakuya. She converted all the information into text and typed it into the screen in front of her. She checked the contents over and over again and organized them carefully. This information, not only would it become an important secret in Radatasker's database, it would also need to be mentioned during the next roundtable meeting. After all, there was too little information on Phantom at the moment, and Radatasker had his own mission to complete. Radatasker didn't have enough manpower. If they were to investigate the Phantom alone, it would be difficult. It would be very difficult. Therefore, Kotori decided to ask the people behind Radatasker to investigate as well. They were more powerful anyway. They rarely interfered with Radatasker's internal affairs, so Kotori was more than happy to give them something to do. Originally, the task of sorting out information was usually done by other staff members and didn't require Commander Kotori to do it herself. But now, Kotori had given Radatasker's people a holiday. She didn't feel comfortable leaving the mysterious Phantom to others, so she decided to do it herself. Apart from Kurumi and Meijio, Kotori was the only other person he knew who had come into contact with Phantom. Phantom had even changed the object of Kotori's existence, so it wasn't a bad choice for her to organize it. On top of that, Kotori was also concerned about the information she got from Meijio, who also came into contact with Phantom and was bestowed with a spirit crystal. Even if the other members of Radatasker were here, Kotori wouldn't let them handle it. After some time, Kotori finally typed the last character into the screen and let out a sigh of relief. Kotori rested her chin on her hand and muttered as she looked at the information about Phantom on the screen. Yakuya gave Yakuya a purple spirit crystal, and I got a red one. Could it be that the different colors of the spirit crystal are the manifestation of different elves' powers? The spirit crystal was the source of all elves' powers. With the spirit crystal, an elf would be an elf. Even a human would possess elven powers after fusing with the spirit crystal. The spirit crystal didn't exist in any part of the elf's body, but as long as it was an elf, there would be a spirit crystal in their body. There was only one way to make this spirit crystal manifest. That was to kill the individual that possessed this spirit crystal, the sprite. Of course, this was only a guess. No one could give a 100% accurate answer as to whether or not one could obtain a spirit crystal by killing an elf. However, according to Westcott, if an elf fell into despair and entered a reverse state, it was very likely that the spiritual crystal would directly appear. That was why Westcott was so obsessed with killing elves. He wanted to get the spirit crystal that represented the power of the elves. Coterie knew this as well. Coterie narrowed her eyes and sighed. Where did the phantom get this spirit crystal? How many spirit crystals does it have? As soon as she finished speaking, a voice came from behind Coterie, as if it was an answer. Could it be that Phantom herself has mastered the method to create spirit crystals? Huh. The sudden voice caused Coterie to exclaim softly. She quickly turned her head, only to see a figure holding a lunchbox in his hand. But if the spirit crystal could be created using a certain method, the elves and elves in this world would be overflowing by now, right? Wu Yin rubbed his chin as if he didn't notice that he scared Coterie. He continued talking while rubbing his chin. Perhaps the phantom was stolen from the Dim or the elven troops of those countries. After all, as an organization that advocates killing elves, they might have really succeeded in killing some elves and obtained the spirit crystal from there. Well, it's also possible that the phantom killed some elves and obtained their spirit crystals to create an elven army that would listen to his orders. That's also very possible. You're talking like nothing happened. What are you talking about? Coterie grumbled when she saw Wu Yin going off on his own. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Are you trying to scare me to death? I didn't stop you because you were busy working. Wu Yin pursed his lips. Who asked you to assume a thinker's posture and talk to yourself over there? Wu Yin returned to Coterie's side, and he looked at the screen showing the information on Phantom. And? Did you get any useful information after thinking about it for so long? No, Coterie said in a huff. I only know that the phantom that appeared before me 5 years ago should be the same existence as the god that contacted Mikoto. It's still bestowing spirit crystals to humans and is still working under our noses. I don't know anything else. Coterie glanced at Wu Yan. And? Why are you here? Didn't you go on a date with Meijio? I don't know where you got that conclusion from, but I'm here to deliver dinner to a certain sister who suddenly called home to tell Shirori that she's going to spend the night at someone else's place. Wu Yin looked at the lunchbox expressionlessly and turned around. Since a certain little sister doesn't like me, I'll just bring the food that I personally cooked back to 10 fragrances to eat. Wait. Coterie lost her cool. She coughed and blushed. As since you've worked so hard to make it, it would be unreasonable of me to not eat it. It's better for me to leave it. Wu Yin smiled triumphantly. Coterie was annoyed again. She snatched the lunchbox from Wu Yan's hand and snorted. Do you have nothing better to do? Why are you here in the middle of the night? Well, it's nothing. Wu Yin shrugged. I thought your excuse of spending the night at someone else's place was a bit ridiculous. I guess you were here, so I came to check it out. Don't worry, I already told Shirori. Coterie paused. She hesitated for a bit before looking at Wu Yan. In that case, follow me to a place. Chapter 12:15. When Wu Yan recovered from the feeling of the world spinning and regained his vision, what appeared in front of him was a vast and dim passage with very little light. All around me were icy cold walls. Behind me was also a wall that seemed to lead to a dead end. In front of me was a tunnel that seemed to have no end, or perhaps it was because it was too dark. Beneath my feet was a mechanical platform that resembled a magic circle. Wu Yin looked at the machine platform under his feet. He looked around before turning around to look at Coterie, who was also standing on the same machine platform as him. Where is this? Coterie brought Wu Yin to a room in the airship Fraxinus. Coterie brought Wu Yin to a room that has never been opened before. There was nothing in the room except for an empty space and an instrument similar to the platform under his feet. Due to the fact that Wu Yin had already turned Fraxinus into a noble phantasm, Wu Yin should know everything about Fraxinus like the back of his hand. Wu Yin should know about the existence of the device and the room. But what is the instrument? What is it? How can it be used? Wu Yin didn't know any of this. Fraxinus was Wu Yan's noble phantasm, but Wu Yin didn't know anything about the instrument that Wu Yin had turned into a noble phantasm. It was impossible. When Wu Yin turned Fraxinus into a noble phantasm, he already knew about the existence of that room and the device. He also knew that he couldn't activate the device. He also asked Coterie about the device and its function more than once. But every single time, even Coterie gave him the excuse that it was useless even if he knew. She sent him away. Now, Wu Yin finally understood the purpose of the device and why he couldn't activate it. It was because of the instrument. It was a long-range fixed-point teleportation device. Long-range fixed-point teleportation device. As the name suggested, it was a device used for long-range teleportation. There was a teleportation device on Fraxinus, and Wu Yin often used it. But it could only teleport a short distance. This is the so-called short distance. It refers to the distance between high and low. For example, the teleportation device on Fraxinus is a device that can teleport people from Fraxinus to Tiangong City, and it can also retrieve people back to Fraxinus. However, it only works when Fraxinus is directly above the target or destination. For example, if the people in Fraxinus wanted to go to Itsuka's house, then Fraxinus would have to move to the top of Itsuka's house. It was the same the other way around. If you want to retrieve a target, you have to move to the top of them. Otherwise, the teleportation device would be useless. As for the long-range fixed-point teleportation device, it was used for teleportation within a very long range. However, it also had restrictions. Restriction 1. It must consume a lot of magical power. The farther the teleportation distance, the more magical power it consumes. Restriction 2. It can only be teleported between another long-range fixed-point teleportation device that is bound to the long-range fixed-point teleportation device. Because of this, even if the long-range fixed-point teleportation device was turned into a noble relic, Wu Yin couldn't use it. The magical power consumption was not a problem. Although it was a little difficult to support it with the overall magical power generated by Fraxinus, it was still doable. The real problem was that if the other long-range fixed-point teleportation device that was bound to the long-range fixed-point teleportation device was not turned on, then it couldn't be teleported. That's why Wu Yin didn't know the function of the device until today. Just like what Coterie said, it was useless even if he knew about it. It was unlikely that he would use it anyway. Fortunately, no one in Fraxinus was around today. That's why Fraxinus could use all its magical power to activate the long-range fixed-point teleportation device. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to activate the long-range fixed-point teleportation device without using up all the magical power in Fraxinus. Wu Yin and Coterie, who stepped into the device and accepted the teleportation, they arrived at a place far, far away from where they came from. They might be in a foreign country. What Coterie said next confirmed Wu Yan's guess. This is the foreign headquarters of Ratatosker. After saying this, Coterie neatly put on the clothes draped over her shoulders, stepped down from the platform, and walked forward. Ratatosker's headquarters? Wu Yin was surprised. He quickly ran down from the platform and followed Coterie. Why did you bring me here? Someone wants to see you, Coterie replied concisely. She continued tidying up her clothes without batting an eyelid. Wu Yin flinched for a second before he recalled something, and he nodded in realization. What's the purpose? Oh, Coterie looked at Wu Yin. Aren't you going to ask who wants to see you? More or less, I can guess. What's the purpose? More or less, I can guess. Coterie rolled her eyes at Wu Yin. Then why are you asking? I'm just not sure. Wu Yin sighed. After all, this could very well be a very boring meeting. It might be for you, or for us, but for the higher-ups, they won't be able to sleep well if they don't make things clear. Coterie pursed her lips. The so-called upper echelons are just a group of people who gradually become more and more afraid of death and have groundless fears as their power and status gradually increase. Of course, that person is an exception. That's why I respect him. Coterie paused and glanced at Wu Yin. Don't get into a conflict with him. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow when he heard this. What if we get into a conflict? Coterie stopped as well. She looked at Wu Yin with her red eyes. She said with an expressionless face, "Then don't even think about getting on my bed." Coterie continued walking forward, leaving Wu Yin standing there in a daze. That prideful and cold Coterie actually dared to say something like, "Don't even think about getting on my bed." It seems like the Lord she spoke of has a very high position in her heart. Rubbing his nose, Wu Yin sighed and shrugged helplessly. "Don't get on your bed? Then you can get on my bed too." Wu Yin giggled, and he crossed his arms behind his head. He followed Coterie into the tunnel. "Listen, don't get into a conflict with that person." Standing in front of a door, Coterie broke the silence and unexpectedly gave an order. "Or else it'll be hard for me." All right. Wu Yin was dissatisfied. "How much do you want to help an outsider? He's my savior." Coterie glared at Wu Yin. "Do you want me to be a person who bites the hand that feeds me? You should at least have some faith in me." Wu Yin waved his hand impatiently. "Do I have a face that will get into conflict with others? Or do I have a bad personality?" "All right, I'm just reminding you." Coterie sighed and pulled herself together. She knocked on the door. "Come in." A voice came from the other side of the door. Coterie pursed her lips, pushed the door open, and walked in. Wu Yin looked inside and saw a large round table. Then he saw a group of people sitting around the table. There were about 5 or 6 people sitting around the round table. Due to the dim lighting, he could only make out their blurry silhouettes. However, Wu Yin, who walked in the room, could clearly feel that everyone here is looking at him. Wu Yin's gaze was attracted to the person sitting at the head of the table. Chapter 12:16. Sitting at the head of the round table was a foreign man in his 50s with a benevolent face. This foreign man in his 50s didn't look very dignified. On the contrary, he looked kind. Although his eyes were sharp, because of his age, he gave people the feeling that he had experienced the vicissitudes of life that an old man should have. Without a doubt, he's a person who would be hard to notice even if thrown into a crowd. However, Wu Yin still paid attention to him at the first possible moment. It's not because he's sitting at the head of the table, and it's not because of his age that Wu Yin thought he might be in existence with a high status. It's because, even though he looks ordinary, the presence he exudes is so strong that it's impossible to ignore him. It's an aura that can only be cultivated by someone who has been in a high position for many years. It's not something that can be covered up by a little impression. Just like Wu Yin, Woodman also looked at Wu Yin. Similarly, it's not because he guessed that Wu Yin is the person he wanted to meet. It's because he sensed an oppressive aura emanating from Wu Yin's body that made his heart palpitate. Although Woodman had never been on the front line regarding the affairs of the elves, he had a deep understanding of the strength of the elves. If an elf were to stand in front of Woodman right now, Woodman wouldn't be affected. Not only would Woodman be able to maintain his composure, he would also be able to use his benevolent face to give the elf a peaceful smile. But now, Woodman sensed an oppressive aura from Wu Yin that makes his heart palpitate. Based on this point alone, Woodman was somewhat convinced of Coterie's words. She said that even if Wu Yin wanted to destroy the world, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Coterie acted like she didn't feel anything and bowed respectfully to Woodman. "Master Woodman, the person you wanted to meet. I brought him here. Thank you for your hard work, Commander Wuha." Woodman smiled kindly and nodded to Coterie. "I'm sorry for making you come all the way here. My side is." Coterie ignored everyone else and lowered her head to Woodman, sending out a message in the middle of the night that will bring people here. "Let the adults open the meeting room at the round table." Coterie should be the one apologizing. "That's right. You don't have to worry, Commander Wuha." Woodman smiled. "Although it's the middle of the night over there, it's still daytime here." "That's good." After saying that, Coterie stepped aside. What happened next? There was no need for Coterie to stand at the front anymore. After all, the main character of this banquet was not her. Almost at the same time, Woodman and everyone else in the conference room fixed their eyes on Wu Yan. Wu Yan glanced at the people sitting around the round table. His gaze met with Woodman's, causing Woodman to smile amiably. Actually, I wanted to meet you since a long time ago. I know, even though the person in front of him is the chairman of the Round Table Conference, a person who is respected by coterie, Wu Yan didn't show any signs of humility. He nodded as if he was an equal. As for the reason, I can more or less guess it. I'm sorry, we have too many questions. If we don't solve them, we won't be able to work in peace. Otherwise, my secretary will get angry. Woodman joked. Wu Yan chuckled. It's about the same here. I don't have a secretary, but I have a sister who gives me a headache. I can't do anything about it. Wu Yan shook his head and he looked at Woodman. I know the reason, but I can't guarantee that I'll be able to solve all your questions. His voice echoed in the conference room and entered the ears of everyone present. At this moment, apart from Coterie and Woodman who remained calm, the other counselors at the round table more or less expressed their dissatisfaction. First, let me introduce myself. Just call me Woodman. Woodman tapped the table with his finger and smiled at Wu Yan. Then, should I call you Daojun Scholar? Or, well, I'll call you that for now. Wu Yan shrugged. Of course, if you have questions about my name, I'll answer truthfully. But you'll be disappointed. Oh, Woodman's smile didn't fade. Why is that? Wu Yan chuckled, and he looked at the other counselors around the round table. Because even if you know my real name and start an investigation, you won't be able to find anything. As soon as he said that, the members at the round table held their breaths for 2 to 3 seconds. That's what they're planning. Is that so? Woodman smiled helplessly. He narrowed his eyes at Wu Yan. If that's the case, it shouldn't matter if I reveal my real name, right? Wu Yan stared at Woodman. Woodman kept a smile on his face, as if he didn't have any ulterior motives. All right, Wu Yan pursed his lips. If that's the case, you can call me Wu Yan. Wu Yan. The members of the round table repeated this name over and over again. They committed this name to memory. When they get back, they will use this name as the source of their investigation. Even though Wu Yan said it was useless, it was still the same. I'll call you Mr. Wu Yan. Woodman tapped his chin and stopped smiling. He took a deep breath, and his expression turned serious. Then, Mr. Wu Yan, can you tell me where you're from? Following this sentence, the entire conference room fell into silence. There was no sound at all. Wu Yan seemed to have expected Woodman to ask such a question. He spread out his hands, smiled, and gave an answer that made everyone's expression change. No comment. The atmosphere in the conference room instantly became heavy. Even Woodman's brows furrowed. You're making things very difficult for us. Are you troubled because you don't know where I came from? The corners of Wu Yan's mouth slowly curved upwards. Then you must have been troubled for a long time, right? That's why I'm asking. Woodman closed his eyes and used the hand on the table to support his chin. You possess a strength that can rival the elves without the use of a manifestation device or any equipment. You also possess a magical tool like the sealing ring that even the manifestation device can't reproduce its function. Adding on to the fact that you appeared together with the spacequake, you're not an elf, and you don't have any traces of living as a human being either. With all these factors added together, even if we want to have a conversation with you, we don't know where to start. If it's possible, I hope Mr. Wu Yan can reveal where you came from. Let us know. Woodman's expression was very serious. This world can no longer withstand threats other than the elves. Is that so? Wu Yan nodded expressionlessly. I see. In your eyes, I'm a threat to the world. Is that what you mean? Yes. I can't say for sure that's not the case, Woodman said bluntly. But I'm more worried that other than the elves, there might be other non-human beings with such great power like you who might be disloyal to this world. You can rest assured about that. Wu Yan waved his hand and interrupted Woodman. I can tell you clearly that I am an exception. Your worries are unnecessary. As soon as he said that, the other counselors in the conference room could no longer sit still. We can't conclude that there's no threat in this world just because you said so. The person sitting on the lower left of Woodman couldn't help but speak in a deep voice. You have to reveal where you came from, your background, your identity. Why do you have the power of an elf? Why do you have such a magical item? Only then can we investigate and, I say, however, before he could finish his sentence, Wu Yan's wine-red eyes flashed with a sharp glint, stopping him in his tracks. Did you make a mistake somewhere? Chapter 12:17. Mistake? The cold words stunned all the members at the round table, including Woodman. Their faces were full of doubt. Wu Yin sighed when he saw the confused look on the members' faces. Then, he said in a light tone, "Looks like you all have been in high positions for too long. You all think it's normal to question others." Wu Yin mocked the council members around the round table. "Do you think it's necessary for me to explain myself to all of you?" Coterie revealed a wry smile. Woodman was taken aback and went silent. Only the other members of the round table seemed to have been provoked, and their faces sank. "What do you mean?" The councilman who asked for Wu Yan's identity and background sounded a bit angry. "Are you provoking all of us at the round table?" Now that's interesting. Wu Yan couldn't help but laugh. His mocking expression turned into one of mockery. "I'm not a subordinate of anyone at the round table. I'm not a member of any of your organizations. I've never received any benefits from you. I don't even have a salary. I only met you because of my sister's request. Other than that, I have nothing to do with you. And you lot, I'm afraid this isn't the first time you've investigated me without my permission. You've even spied on me and interfered with me. I haven't even pursued the matter with you lot, and you're already questioning me." Wu Yin narrowed his wine-red eyes. His words struck a chord in everyone's hearts. "Speak. Why should I explain myself to all of you?" His words were extremely sharp. It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over the heads of all the counselors who were still angry just a moment ago, causing a chill to run down their spines. Only now did they realize that the person in front of them was called Itsuka Shido. His real name was Wu Yin. He wasn't even a member of their organization. Then, why did he have to explain everything to them who had nothing to do with him? "Haven't you already joined Ratatosker?" Another councilman sitting on the left side of the round table spoke. "Ratatosker is an organization established by the round table. Since you're a member of Ratatosker, you should be our subordinate. In that case, isn't it right that they are our subordinates?" That's right. That's right. The council members at the round table remembered this, and they got excited. However, Wu Yin retorted with a nonchalant statement. "I joined Ratatosker because I wanted to save the elves who were killed because of their existence." Wu Yin glanced at the members. "However, I didn't receive any benefits from Ratatosker. Instead, I helped you seal the elves. I did it for free. Is this how you treat someone who is helping you for free?" The members at the round table were speechless. However, the member sitting on the left of the main seat retorted. "But you also received a group of powerful elves because of this, didn't you?" The member stared at Wu Yin and sneered. "Speaking of which, you're the one who benefited the most, right?" Hearing this, Coterie's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Even Woodman frowned. Wu Yin looked at the sneer member and turned to Woodman. "Are you sure this person is with you?" Woodman remained silent. The member was infuriated. He slammed the table and stood up. "What do you mean by that? Are you denying my identity?" "That's right." Wu Yin looked at him with a cold glare. "Isn't the main purpose of the round table to peacefully resolve the threat of spacequake and allow the elves to live happily ever after?" "What did you just say? Benefits?" Wu Yin took a step forward. A suffocating pressure enveloped everyone's heart. Woodman's pupils shrunk. The members were horrified. "In your eyes, the elves only bring benefits? Then why can't I question your identity?" I. Only then did the councilman realize how stupid his words were. His face was filled with panic. Woodman could kick him out of the round table based on that sentence alone. He would never be able to interfere with the affairs of the elves. If he couldn't interfere with the affairs of the elves, he wouldn't be able to know the truth behind Spacequake and Spacequake. If it was a light matter, his status would be lowered. If it was a serious matter, all his memories of the elves and Spacequake would be erased. He would be demoted to the level of an ordinary person. In this world where Spacequake and elves were the main theme, demoting him to the level of an ordinary person would be akin to knocking him off his pedestal. No matter what, this was something he couldn't accept. If this threat came from any of the other counselors, or even all of the counselors present, the counselor might not care about it. In terms of status, although everyone present was on par with him, there was no one who could truly stand above him and decide his life and death. There wasn't anyone among the members, but there was one among the chairmen. With Woodman's strength, it wasn't impossible for him to knock him off his pedestal. Therefore, the councilman immediately panicked. He slammed the table and stood up, not knowing whether to stand or sit. He instantly fell into a state of incomparable anxiety. Seeing this scene, Woodman sighed softly. "Sit down. Yes, yes." Seeing that Woodman didn't seem to have any intention of pursuing the matter, the councilman breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't dare to say anything else and hurriedly complied respectfully before sitting down resentfully. Woodman looked at Wu Yin and he said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Wu Yin." "My apologies, Wu Yin-kun. We were wrong in this matter. I can't move freely, so I can only apologize to you. I hope you can forgive me." Wu Yan's expression lightened up a bit. "I don't mean to blame you. It's just that, even though I'm in the middle of a quest, the elves are very kind. They are sincere in interacting with me. I have never forced myself to interact with them for the sake of world peace. Even if I have a motive, I treat the elves with sincerity." At this point, Wu Yin looked around at everyone. Benefits and whatnot. I know there's no way to eradicate it from everyone's heart, but at the very least, don't do anything stupid because of benefits. Otherwise, when the time comes, not only will I not help you, but I might even become your most important enemy." Lin Fan said with a smile. Such blunt words caused all the members present to look at each other in silence. Coterie was still expressionless, but her red eyes were filled with gentleness. Even Woodman revealed a sincere smile. "I'm glad to hear that. You are the one who did the right thing." Woodman beamed at Wu Yin. Then he sighed helplessly. "But it seems like we won't be able to get any information from you. That's why I told Coterie that this meeting is going to be boring." Wu Yin shrugged. He didn't try to hide anything from her. "But you can rest assured that as long as you stand on the side of the elves and act for the good of the elves, I will always be on your side. This is the only thing I can guarantee you. So it's like this." Woodman mumbled as if he was sleep-talking. An extremely warm smile slowly surfaced on his face. "If that's the case, that's enough." Woodman's original seriousness faded away from his face, replaced by the amiable look he had at the beginning. Only now did Woodman look like a benevolent old man, looking at Wu Yin with a gentle gaze. "Other than Wu Yin-kun's background, I also wanted to ask you, we're going to use the large number of manifestation devices you want us to make, but now I think Wu Yin-kun will use the display devices appropriately." Meeting Wu Yan's eyes, Woodman smiled. "I'll leave the elves in your hands." Wu Yin laughed. Coterie laughed as well. Chapter 12:18. Phew. Soaking in the hot water, Wu Yin exhaled softly. He stared at the ceiling of the bathroom. His heart was in turmoil. Coterie brought him to Woodman and the others, and he only met with the council members once. However, the development of the situation was in line with his expectations. He had to admit that the council members had good intentions. At the very least, they advocated for peaceful communication with the elves in order to solve the disaster the elves brought to the world and allow the elves to live a happy life. This idea suited Wu Yin very well. Because of this, the council members of the Round Table have a lot of restrictions. They can't be as unscrupulous as the Dem when dealing with the elves. In addition, Wu Yan's strength allowed them to get the best result without exposing any useful information. Wu Yin can't just tell the council members that he's not from this world, he's from another world. Moreover, he can come and go as he pleases. Even if he leaves this world will be frozen in time. If he really did say that, it's one thing if the members of the Round Table would believe him or not. Even if they did, it wouldn't make any difference to Wu Yin. He wouldn't mind exposing his identity to the other worlds outside of this world. There are a lot of existences as strong as the elves out there. However, if he did that, it would cause a bit of trouble. To this world, the elves were an existence equivalent to a natural disaster. The elves alone were enough to make the higher-ups of this world battered. If they knew that there were existences more powerful than the elves, and that people in the Spalier world could cultivate and become stronger as humans, many of them would become disloyal. For example, they hoped to obtain the method to cultivate impetus and mana from Wu Yin. Or they hoped that Wu Yin could bring them out of this world and into a world with true power. If Wu Yin doesn't want to do it, he will definitely arouse their hostility. This could be seen from today's meeting. They casually took the fact that the elves possessed power as a benefit. Obviously, inside the round table, not everyone would treat the elves with sincerity. When the forest was big, there were all kinds of birds. Although there were only a few members at the round table, all of them held high positions. Their thoughts. It was very likely that it directly represented the thoughts of the forces they owned. It was also because of this Wu Yin didn't reveal his true identity. Otherwise, why would he go out his way to hide something just because of the hostility of a bunch of normal people? What he was afraid of was that she was there. Inside the round table, the hands and feet of the Dem were still there. Once his identity was discovered by that ambitious Dem, he would be in big trouble. He might not care too much about it, but what about the elves? What about Shirori? Wu Yin couldn't ignore these things. Fortunately, Chairman Woodman was truly considerate of the elves. He prevented Wu Yin from completely falling out with the round table. He also successfully obtained the assurance that the round table would complete the display device he requested. According to Woodman, the materials for the display device were all prepared. Wu Yin also left them sufficient funds. The production of the display device will be put on the agenda. With Yasgate Electronics Company's manufacturing technology of the display device and the assistance of the other display devices in the manufacturing process, I believe that this batch of display devices with a large number of different types should not be too far away from the day of their birth. Woodman also promised that once the display devices were completed, he would immediately send Wu Yin to collect them. As for how Wu Yin is going to take away such a large number of display devices, that's not something he needs to concern himself with. In the end, the round table only obtained a name and nothing else, yet they were still willing to produce display devices for Wu Yin. From this perspective, Wu Yin was quite blessed by the goddess of luck. Unfortunately, Wu Yin didn't feel too happy about this result. Logically speaking, he should be happy with this result. However, Wu Yan's mood was slightly complicated. He couldn't say that he was upset. He could only say that he had a bad premonition about what was about to happen. But it didn't seem like it was a bad feeling either. Wu Yin felt the restlessness in his heart over and over again. He couldn't figure out what it was or why it was. He couldn't help but feel a little conflicted. Could it be that vampires are all so bored at night? Just as Wu Yin was feeling conflicted, a young and majestic voice came from his body. Wu Yin was startled. He helplessly scratched his cheek. I say, not Suki, I'm already annoyed enough. Don't hit me when I'm down. You're annoyed, but I'm annoyed too. Not Suki retorted without holding back. As soon as I woke up and connected to your consciousness, I noticed that you were feeling restless for no reason. You don't even know why you're feeling restless. Isn't that just boredom? Do you think I want to? Wu Yin grumbled in dissatisfaction. I also want to know what's going on, but I just feel restless for no reason. I don't know if it's because of the connection between our consciousnesses, but it's making me feel restless. Not Suki sighed. They say that only women will feel restless for no reason when they're old. I didn't think men would feel restless as well, especially vampires. Menopause really doesn't have any racial restrictions, but there's a gender restriction. Only women feel it, I don't. Plus, I'm still young. I'm only in my 20s. Don't talk nonsense. Wu Yan's eye twitched. Perhaps it's because the familiar is showing signs of menopause that it's causing its master, who is connected to it, to feel annoyed for no reason. Who knows? Oh, Natsuki's voice stiffened slightly. and she lowered her voice. It seems like you've become a lot more arrogant after turning me into your familiar and becoming my master. I'm just stating facts. Wu Yin pursed his lips. You said that our consciousnesses are connected. Since that's the case, why don't you tell me why I'm feeling restless? Don't ask me about things you don't even know. Natsuki harumphed. Who knows if you're overreacting because you've been in contact with the people at the round table. I hope I'm overreacting. Wu Yin scratched his head in frustration. But I keep having this feeling. It's like I've forgotten something. Forgotten? Natsuki was astonished by his words. Don't you have perfect memory? How could you forget something like that? To be more precise, it's neglected. Wu Yin frowned. That's right. There's something, or someone that I've neglected. Neglected? Natsuki's interest was piqued. What did you overlook? I wouldn't be asking you if I knew. Wu Yin snapped. It's not a matter of memory. It's something I've neglected. Aren't we connected? Can't you help me look for it? How would I know what you've neglected? Natsuki grumbled. Let me bring up all the people, things you've experienced since you were a child. You can try to recall them and see if you've neglected anything. Wu Yin choked and sighed. In other words, there's no result? Well, who knows? Natsuki said nonchalantly. Maybe you just don't want to remember. I'd be an idiot if I relied on you. Wu Yin got annoyed when he heard that. Wu Yan's eyes darted around as he thought of something. He smirked and raised his hand. It transformed into a black, ghostly hand with blood-red veins. Then, a bloody mist gushed out from his hand. A naked Natsuki appeared from the bloody mist. She sat on top of Wu Yin with a shocked look on her face. You. Before Natsuki could react, Wu Yin covered her mouth with his. Natsuki's eyes widened in disbelief. You. Wu Yan's hands started roaming all over Natsuki's body as she whimpered. Chapter 1219. This is Tiangong City's Elven Army, AST's base. Unlike the buildings and residences of normal people, AST's base only gave off one feeling. It was cold. This was because other than some indoor rooms, the walls of the corridors, passageways, halls, and other places were all made of cold steel. Rather than calling it a garrison, it would be better to call it a fully armed base. Inside the camp, in the corridors and passageways, AST members dressed in revealing streamlined outfits were chatting with each other. If one ignored their tight-fitting streamlined outfits and the desolate environment around them, these AST members would be no different from ordinary teenage girls. Among these girls, Tabichi Origami, who is also wearing a streamlined uniform, is also here. Unlike the other AST members who were chatting and laughing, Kitsune Origami silently walked past her colleagues and entered a changing room. She changed her clothes while organizing her CR unit. Today is the first day of the Tianyang Festival. As a student of Lichon High School, even if Kitsune Origami doesn't want to play to her heart's content, she should still help her classmates work at the booths. In fact, Kitsune Origami did exactly that. After finishing her work, Kitsune Origami left Tiangong Square without saying a word. She didn't plan to have fun during the Tianyang Festival. She went straight to the training room in the base. She started training day after day, year after year. This training has been going on until now. In the base, there were also other members who were working hard like Kite Origami, carrying out the daily routine of AST. However, they are planning to finish all their work in AST so that they can enjoy the remaining 2 days of the Tianyang Festival. After all, the Tianyang Festival will be held for 3 days. They have to finish all their work on the first day and then enjoy it for 2 more days. This was a very normal thing. Unfortunately, Kitsune Origami isn't like that. Although Kite 1 Origami had finished his work, he would still come to the encampment for training after finishing his work in the upcoming Tianyang ritual. At least, that's what she plans to do. Kitsune Origami changed out of her streamlined uniform. Wearing a set of military-like work clothes, Tokichi Origami raised her head and looked at the CR unit stored in the special wardrobe. Then, she stopped moving. Kitsune Origami stared at the CR unit in front of her with complicated feelings. For Kitsune Origami, who wants to kill the elves and find the enemy who killed her parents, This CR unit is the only thing she can rely on. It's the only thing she can rely on to achieve her revenge. Without the CR unit, Kitsune Origami is just a girl who is slightly stronger than other girls of the same age. However, even if she has this CR unit, what can she do? Kitsune Origami knows that AST CR unit is only average. It's far from the best CR unit, let alone the most advanced CR unit. It can't compare to them. It was impossible to defeat the elves by relying on such a CR unit. In other words, even if she can find her enemy, Kitsune Origami doesn't have the power to seek revenge. But what can she do? Kitsune Origami won't be able to use a good CR unit even if she has one, let alone if she doesn't have one. Therefore, even if the CR unit in front of her is only a mainland CR unit, Kitsune Origami can only rely on it. That's why Kitsune Origami needs to train to make up for the CR unit's lack of performance. Apart from this, Tokichi Origami really couldn't think of any other way to successfully take revenge. Kitsune Origami clenched her fists and lowered her head when she remembered how powerful the elves in the same class were and how they couldn't even survive a single hit from the fire elves. When can I get my revenge? Just as Yuichi Origami was about to immerse herself in the flames of revenge, a series of footsteps sounded from outside the door, waking Yuichi Origami up. She turned around and saw a few of her colleagues, who were chatting and laughing, walking in at the same time and starting to change their clothes. Yuichi Origami shook her head and got rid of the distracting thoughts in her mind. She closed her closet. Just as she was about to walk out of the locker room, the conversation of several colleagues caught her attention. Hey, did you hear? A girl said in a mysterious tone. I heard a big shot is coming to our base. Big shot? Yuichi Origami stopped in her tracks and frowned slightly. Big shot? The other girl's interest was piqued as well. What big shot? I'm not sure. I'm not too sure either. I only know that it's someone from the DM side. Wow, that a big shot. Hearing the conversation between the girls, Tokichi Origami's frown deepened. Of course, Kite Origami had heard of the name DIM. Since Yasgate Electronics isn't a public company, their connections with other countries are very subtle and secretive. Therefore, in the eyes of those who know about the display device but don't have a deep understanding of it, DM is the only organization in the world that can produce the display device. Since it was the only organization in the world that could produce display devices, how could Tokichi Origami not recognize it? However, wasn't DM's branch in Tiangong City destroyed by an unknown fire some time ago? Then, could it be that DIM's people came to AST's base to ask AST's people to assist in the investigation? For some reason, Kitsune Origami's heart started to beat faster. The reason for the commotion was none other than the word fire. With DM's achievements in the field of display devices, how could a branch company be completely destroyed by a mere fire? The answer was, of course, impossible. A fire that could destroy DM's branch is definitely not an ordinary fire. At the thought of this, a black-clothed, black-haired, red-eyed figure surrounded by flames, and a red-haired, red-eyed girl in feathered clothes who also controlled fire flashed across Tokichi Origami's mind at the same time. If a normal fire can't do it, then what about the fire controlled by the elves? With such a thought rising in his heart, Yuichi Origami's heart suddenly tightened into a ball. Could it be that they were the ones who destroyed DM's branch company? As soon as such a thought appeared, it grew like a vine. Not only did it take root in Kitsune Origami's heart, but it also grew rapidly and was out of control. However, while Toichi Origami was having such a thought, the captain of AST, Daybreak Prairie Fire, rushed into the locker room and shouted at all the AST members. Everyone, get ready now. Gather at the entrance of the base. Upon hearing this, all of the AST members, including Tokichi Origami, were stunned. At this time, it was almost midnight. Why were they still gathering? Kitsune Origami didn't plan to waste any time and directly announced, "The big shots from DIM are about to arrive at the base. There are orders from above. All members of AST must line up at the door. Welcome the big shot from DM." Hearing this, All the girls present immediately cried out in surprise. No way. They're welcoming him at this time? All of them. Who is this big shot? Why is he so arrogant? Stop talking nonsense. Looking at the group of AST girls who kept their clothes half undone while whispering to each other, they did not take the time to change their clothes at all. A surge of anger erupted from his heart. Don't waste my breath. Hurry up and get ready. His lion-like roar startled everyone present. They hurriedly responded loudly and started to change their clothes. Chapter 12:20. Heavenly Palace City, the entrance of the AST garrison base. Under the dark curtain of the night, the AST members who were wearing military-like uniforms lined up neatly on the vast open space. Their postures were upright, their heads held high, and their chests puffed out like a well-trained ceremonial team. Their eyes were fixed on the front with a solemn expression on their faces. In front of the army, there were a few stern-looking middle-aged men who were ready to go. They were also lined up in a row. Under the sun, Liaozi was standing one step behind these men. Clearly, these middle-aged men had a higher status than her. In fact, it was true that these middle-aged men were the leaders of the Heavenly Palace City's Land Self-Defense Force, the AST, against the elves. They were considered the highest-ranking people in the entire garrison. Although their identities were not second to none in the country, they were still among the best. But even with such an existence, they still respectfully lined up in a row, as if they were soldiers meeting a general. It was easy to imagine how high the status of this big shot in the DM was. The AST members were lined up neatly. They maintained absolute silence in the dark night. Even the sound of their breathing was deliberately lowered. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. The entire open space was filled with a heavy atmosphere. Fortunately, the heavy silence did not last long. It was broken by the sound of a luxurious car. When they saw the luxurious car, their eyes lit up. The eyes of the group of AST executives lit up. They took a few steps forward and welcomed the arrival of the car. The car seemed to have noticed the situation at the scene as well. It slowly drove to the front of the group and gradually came to a stop. With the sound of a car door opening, a man and a woman got out of the luxurious car. The man was wearing a suit. He was tall, had dark gray blonde hair, and sharp eyes. It was Will Scott. Long blonde hair, fair skin. A young girl in office who looked like a secretary. It was Irene. Wu Yin and the others thought that Will Scott and Irene had left Heavenly Palace City because of the destruction of the DM branch. However, Will Scott and Irene appeared at the AST garrison in Heavenly Palace City. Mr. Will Scott. Of course, it was impossible for these AST members to know about the grudge between Wu Yin and Will Scott. They only knew they were the actual higher-ups of the DM. They had arrived at the AST garrison in Heavenly Palace City. Therefore, with the higher-ups of AST taking the lead, all the AST members present bowed. They bowed deeply. Welcome to the Elven Land Self-Defense Forces garrison. A middle-aged man who was standing in the middle of AST's upper echelons, who obviously had a higher status, said respectfully. The rest of the upper echelons also bowed one after another. No, no, no. I should be the one apologizing for disturbing you at this time. Will Scott had an uncomfortable smile on his face as he nodded in an unapologetic tone. I'm sorry for causing you trouble. No, it's not like that. The middle-aged man shook his head in a panic. Indeed, no matter how he thought about it, it was already midnight. If someone came to visit at this time, it would undoubtedly be troublesome. The middle-aged man did not dare say that in front of Will Scott. He did not even dare think about it. To them, Will Scott was not just a big shot. He was someone they could not afford to offend. Westcott was the executive director of DM, and DM was the only existence in the world that they knew could produce the display device. In other words, in their eyes, Westcott was the person who controlled all the display devices in the world. If they offended Westcott and caused him to refuse to provide them with the display device, then DME would definitely follow Westcott's wishes and refuse to provide them with the display device. By then, not only would they be able to kill elves, even the national power of this country might be greatly reduced. If that happened, the middle-aged man would be the center of the entire country. Besides, the ground self-defense force owed DM a huge debt because of the display device. If Westcott was slighted here and displeased him, the situation would certainly become very tricky. It was possible that all the AST companies in Heavenly Palace City would lose their positions. Well, Scott wasn't sincere in his apology. Looking at the middle-aged man's respectful attitude, he shrugged in boredom. Well, I didn't have a choice. The DM branch in Heavenly Palace City was destroyed, and I ran into some trouble trying to return to the headquarters. I wanted to stay in a hotel for now, but this guard of mine said it was too dangerous, so I had no choice but to come here and disturb you. I happen to have something to take care of as well. I need the help of some sophisticated display devices. Of course, that's not a problem, the middle-aged man agreed without hesitation. The devices in the outpost are all newly acquired by your company. They can definitely meet your needs. We have prepared a room for you as well. Feel free to use them, Mr. Will. That's good. Well, Scott nodded in satisfaction. He walked towards the entrance of the outpost. Irene followed behind him quietly. The AST members who lined up at the entrance moved aside in an orderly manner, making a path for Westcott to walk through. Westcott did not stand on ceremony as he walked straight through. However, when Will Scott's gaze inadvertently caught sight of something, his footsteps came to a halt as a glint flashed across his sharp eyes. Irene, seeing this, Irene looked at Will Scott in confusion. Westcott stared in a certain direction and walked over to a young girl. This young girl was none other than Origami Kite. Seeing Will Scott walk in front of him and stare at him, Tokichi Origami's heart tightened. He lowered his head and his heart started to race. Why is this big shot from DM looking at me like that? Mr. Will Scott. The group of higher-ups also found it strange as they called out softly. However, Will Scott didn't even turn his head back. He smiled at Kite One Origami. You are? Me? Me? Origami Kite became the center of attention in an instant. She couldn't help but feel uneasy. Land Self-Defense Force Member Chow Origami Kite. Miss Kite. Will Scott nodded with a smile. He narrowed his eyes and pointed at Origami Kite's pocket. Can I have a look at that? Hearing this, everyone was startled and quickly looked at UAE Origami's pocket. UAE Origami also looked over immediately. Then they all saw it. There was a photo peeking out from Origami Kite's pocket. This. Origami Kite was confused when she saw the photo. Could it be that this big shot had come all the way here just because of this photo? With that thought in mind, Toichi Origami quietly took out the photo from his pocket and handed it to Westcott. Westcott thanked him and looked at the photo. Then his sharp eyes shone with a strange light. Behind Will Scott, Elaine also looked at the photo. It was a group photo. There were at least 30 to 40 people in the photo. In the middle of the group, there was a banner with the words Lai-chan High School, Grade 2, Class 4. Of course, this wasn't what caught Will Scott's attention. What really caught Will Scott's attention were the 5 people standing behind the horizontal line. Wu Yan, 10 Fragrances, Kwang San, Yajuya, Shi Xian. Ellen's pupils shrank. Will Scott's lips curled up as he looked at Toichi Origami. Are the people in the photo your classmates? Yes. Yes. Origami replied in a calm voice, but she did not hide the ripples in her eyes. Will Scott smiled and handed the photo back to her. This photo was taken at the Tianyang ceremony, right? It looks good. Westcott smiled and left Tokichi Origami, who was still in a daze, and everyone else. He walked into the base with Irene as if nothing had happened. No one noticed that the smile on Will Scott's face was much wider than it was at the beginning. Chapter 1221. Yu Wu Yan, who was dreaming, suddenly felt a few powerful and emotional gazes on him. He let out a small whimper and quickly opened his eyes. Light flooded his field of vision. A second ago, he was in deep sleep, but the next second, he opened his eyes, rapidly causing his vision to become blurry. He even felt a slight pain in his head, but he didn't have the time to care about that. His intuition told him that if he didn't recover quickly, something very unfavorable to him would befall him. Ignoring the pain in his eyes due to the blinding light, Wu Yin urged his consciousness to return to normal. When his vision returned to normal, he looked at the source of the gaze filled with emotions. Wu Yin saw. They had the same appearance, the same hair color, and the same pupils. However, one of them was slender and the other was voluptuous. They were standing by his bed. However, their familiar eyes were staring at Wu Yin. They seemed to be dissatisfied and angry. It was clear that the gaze filled with emotions Wu Yin felt came from those eyes. I woke up. I woke up. Why was it that Yi Juya and Shi Xian were behaving so differently from before when he woke up? He saw the anger in their eyes and heard their angry words. Wu Yin, who had just woken up, was confused for a moment. If it was any other morning, Yi Jia and Shi Xian would have used the method they learned from the educational video to wake him up. Then, he would take advantage of them. Why are they acting so strangely today? Doubts arose in his mind. Wu Yin sneaked a peek at the Yamato sisters who were still fuming with rage. His mind spun rapidly. Could it be that he had done something that would incur the wrath of both men and gods? Wu Yin scratched his head. When he was about to ask something, he noticed something strange. In his arms, there seemed to be something soft lying there. Feeling the softness, Wu Yin blinked his eyes. He glanced at the displeased expressions of the Baku sisters and rubbed the soft thing in his arms. He suddenly recalled something. His face stiffened, and he slowly lowered his head to look at the thing in his arms. The first thing that entered Wu Yan's eyes was a head of long, straight black hair. Then, the owner of the long, straight hair appeared in front of Wu Yan's eyes. It was Nayu. His eyes widened slightly. Wu Yan looked at Nayu lying in his arms. She was sleeping peacefully like a baby. He finally understood why the Bawu sisters were acting like this. Last night, Wu Yan pranked Nayu in the bathroom and took advantage of her. He brought her back to the room to sleep. Nayu seemed to be afraid that others would notice that she was being taken advantage of. Therefore, during the process of the ripples, she resisted and finally collapsed to the ground and fell into a deep sleep. Therefore, in summary, last night, Wu Yin hugged Nayu, who was so tired that she fell asleep on the bed and fell asleep instantly. If Wu Yan's memory serves him right, the two people who slept in the same room as him were Yagia and Yushin, right? In the end, he slept with Nayu. Where did the Bawu sisters sleep last night? It means that they slept on the sofa. Shi Xian said expressionlessly, as if she saw through Wu Yan's thoughts. Because it was already very late, Shiji and the others went back to their rooms to sleep. Therefore, Shi Xian and Yi Juya went to the living room to sleep on the sofa. Sleep on the sofa. Wu Yin couldn't stay calm. Just because he slept with another girl, he caused the other two delicate girls to sleep on the sofa. What a heinous crime. Even though we have Yushin with us, we sisters still have to sleep on the sofa. Yakuya crossed her arms in front of her chest. She looked down at Wu Yin with fury in her eyes. Even if you are our master, this is something that cannot be forgiven. That. Looking at the Bawu sisters' angry faces, Wu Yin couldn't find any excuses. He could only smile awkwardly and cut off the magical energy he was supplying to Nayu. The sleeping Nayu turned into light spots and disappeared into the air. She returned to Wu Yan's body. Wu Yan sat up on the bed and pretended to cough. He looked at the sisters with a serious expression and said in a serious tone, "Actually, there are many complicated reasons behind this." That's right, there are many complicated reasons. Because it's too complicated, I won't explain. Conclusion, Shi Xian narrowed her eyes and glanced at Wu Yan. In other words, Master has nothing to say, right? Yes, it's all my fault. Wu Yan surrendered without hesitation. Very good. Yi Jian nodded in satisfaction. He raised his chin in a domineering manner. Seeing that you are our master and that you are sincere in your repentance, we can consider reducing your punishment. There are still crimes. Wu Yan's face turned bitter. Punishing a master is not something a slave should do. They're just ordinary slaves. Yi Juya said arrogantly to Wu Yan. We are the children of the hurricane, Bawu. Even if we are slaves, we are different from ordinary slaves. Agreed. Shi Xian nodded. Master, You must pay the price for the cold wind that Shi Xian and Yi Juya suffered last night. So wake up to reality. After that, Yi Juya and Shi Xian took out something that Wu Yin couldn't ignore. A whip and a candle. Gulp. Wu Yin gulped and shifted his butt uncomfortably on the bed. Why are you holding these things? I learned it from those special training videos. Yi Jia had no idea what the item in his hand could do. He waved the whip proudly and whipped it on the floor. It says something like, I must give love guidance to the person I love. This is something I learned yesterday. Supplement. Shi Xian lit the candle in her hand. So, Yi Juya and Shi Xian ordered these items from the internet without telling Shirori. I didn't expect to use them today. Wu Yin shook his head like a rattle drum. No. You can't use them. Sinner. You have no choice. Yi Juya and Shi Xian held the items that Wu Yin thought were extremely dangerous. They smiled maliciously and approached Wu Yin step by step. Let's talk this over. Wu Yin shouted. I believe that people can understand each other. It's useless to say anything. Carrying an unknown aura, the Baku sisters also yelled out the same thing. While Wu Yin looked at them in horror, they wanted to pounce on him. Suddenly, Wu Yin's phone rang. Someone is calling me. Wu Yin grabbed his phone and ran out of his room as if he had seen his savior. The Bao's sisters were stomping their feet angrily. He ran to the corridor outside his room, his forehead full of sweat. So dangerous. Wiping the cold sweat off his forehead, Wu Yin looked at the caller ID and answered the call. He immediately thanked the person who called him. Mei Jiao, you really are my savior, huh? Mei Jiao made a sound of surprise on the other side of the phone. She pursed her lips in confusion. I don't know what's going on, but it's great to be able to help. Yes. It's a big help. Wu Yin nodded. So, what do you want from me? Yes. All right. Mei Jiao's voice became cheerful. Dear, do you have any plans for the Tianyang festival? Yes. Plans? Wu Yin scratched his cheek. I have to check the booths of Lichon High School before the festival. Other than that, there's nothing else. That's great. Mei Jiao couldn't wait to ask. Then, after work, can you go on a date with me? Yes. Chapter 1222. Heavenly Palace City, Heavenly Palace Square. When Wu Yin arrived at the venue of the Tianyang ritual, Tiangong Square, the place was already packed with people. Compared to yesterday, the number of people in Heavenly Palace Square has increased significantly. But that's to be expected. The Tianyang ceremony would last for 3 days, but in the eyes of outsiders, it would only last for 2 days. This was because the third day of the Tianyang festival was known as the Late Night Festival. Only the students of the 10 high schools could participate in this festival. If they're not from the 10 high schools, then after today, they won't be able to participate in tomorrow's Heavenly Palace Festival. After all, while others were enjoying the Tianyang ceremony, the students of the 10 high schools were in charge of various booths and activities. Rather than saying that they were playing, it was better to say that they were providing entertainment services for others. Even if they could play, they would only do so when they switched shifts with others. If that was the case, it would be unfair to the students. Therefore, the third day of the Heavenly Palace Festival is the day for the 10 high schools to play. Only tomorrow, the students can play to their heart's content. Because of this, there are more people participating in the Heavenly Palace Festival today than yesterday. The reason is simple. If they miss today, then their Heavenly Palace Festival will be over. Therefore, the second day of each Heavenly Palace Festival is the liveliest. Kurumi, Toka, Dagiya, Aikishin, and Shirori are following behind him. Wu Yin walked along the path that was divided into different paths. Wu Yin walked towards the stalls of Rokuzen High School. While walking, he's greeted by the laughter of the students around him. Yo, Wu-huh, you're a bit late. I don't have as much energy as you guys. I can only take it slow. Executive committee member, you're really working hard. Don't cause me trouble if you know. What are you complaining about? You're just recharging. Shut up. Aren't you the ones who made me a member of the executive committee? Who told you to take a bunch of beautiful and cute girls everywhere? I'm so envious. Then hurry up and find someone to marry while you're still young. Huh? The students of Zen High School greeted Wu Yin as he walked in front of them. As they joked around, Yi Ju Sure and Shi Xian exchanged a glance and couldn't help but sigh. To be able to gain the support of so many people, even mortals, are amazing, as expected of our master. Agreed. Master seems to be very popular. Hey, hey, hey. Do you guys really not know, or are you pretending? Shirji bitterly smiled. Your master is so popular. It's all thanks to you guys. Toka didn't understand what Shirori was trying to say. Why? Kurumi tilted her head and put her finger on her lips. Her red eyes narrowed. Because I'm envious? Envious? 10 Fragrances was even more confused. With her natural level and brain capacity, she didn't know what was going on. It was too much for her to understand the various complexities between men and women. On the contrary, I feel that what you said is the most wrong thing. Walking at the front, Wu Yin, who was constantly greeting the people around him, said something that stunned everyone without even turning his head. I don't even know who they are. Huh? The elven girls and Shirji were all stunned. Shirji even asked in surprise, You don't know who they are? Why are you greeting them so happily if you don't know who they are? They're greeting me. I can't just ignore them, right? Wu Yin glanced at Shirji. Don't all high school students like this? Acting like you're familiar with them, or pretending to be familiar with them. The girls were speechless when they heard this. Not long after, amidst the laughter of the surrounding Lai Chan high school students. Soon, the maid cafe appeared in front of them. Wu Yin stopped and looked at the girls. All right, I'll stop here. You guys have to do your best, huh? Toko was the first to voice her dissatisfaction. Shido, aren't you going to entertain the guests? That's the maid cafe. Wu Yin knocked Toka's head, not sure if he should laugh or cry. If you ask me to entertain the guests, I'm afraid I'll scare them away. This is the best time for the executive committee members. After the opening ceremony, we basically have nothing to do. We can go and play as we please. Shirori sighed and complained. I wanted you to take Kotori and Shirono out for a bit. Yoshino went out with Lady Murasame Rain, and I don't know where Kotori went. She doesn't have to go to class before and after the Tianyang festival. With Kotori's personality, it's impossible for her to miss such an event. No. Wu Yin muttered. Kotori's personality is in commander mode. Why would he participate in this kind of childlike ceremony? He's a commander after all. What did you say? Nothing. Wu Yin waved his hand and opened his mouth. Before he could say anything, a voice that seemed to cover his voice was heard. Dear, love, the incomparably sweet voice reverberated throughout the entire stall belonging to Lai Chan High School, as if no one else was around. Wu Yan's face froze. The girls' expressions froze as well. The students of Lai Chan High School were stunned and the air around them froze. Everyone at the scene immediately shifted their gazes to the source of the voice, looking at the culprit who shouted darling. However, the person who appeared there caused them to be at a loss. It's a girl in a white dress with long violet hair and a hot body. She's very likely to be very beautiful. Why would he say very likely to be very beautiful? The reason is simple, because on the young girl's face, there was a mask that covered everything above her nose except for her mouth. The girl was happily waving at Wu Yin. Everyone shifted their attention back to Wu Yin. The confusion on their faces faded away and was replaced by an odd expression. That girl seems to be calling dear, right? Dear. Could it be Wu He? But doesn't he have so many beautiful girls around him? Could it be another one? Along with the whispers, the gazes directed at Wu Yin started to turn weird. Then they all started to stare at Wu Yin like needles stabbing into his back. In their hearts, another member of Five Rivers Inner Court had been added to their ranks. Wu Yin's face alternated between green, white, black, and red. All sorts of colors gathered on his face. Under the gazes of the crowd, he was finally unable to restrain himself. With a leap, he arrived in front of the young girl wearing the mask. He extended his hand and grabbed the young girl's hand. Then, he turned around and fled without a trace. Damn you, Wu He. Don't even think about running away. You despicable fellow, you actually expanded your harem members. Could it be that all those cute girls can't satisfy you? If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have made you a committee member. I should have made you a coolie. You, stop right there. At least let me punch you. That's right, just one punch. Stop. Go after him. Amidst a wave of condemnation, the group of boys from Lichon High School finally completely exploded when a certain wolf showed off his family members. One by one, they abandoned the preparations for the opening of the Tianyang ceremony in their hands and randomly grabbed things that could be used as weapons beside them. They formed a group and majestically chased after the wolf. Seeing the boys from Lichon High School roll up a smoke dragon and chase forward noisily, the group of elven girls and Shirori were all dumbfounded and speechless. Sherdao is being hunted. 10 Incense stared blankly at the front and then panicked. Quick, go save Shido. No need. Stop him. Yiju Shur and Shi Xian hugged 10 Fragrant's slender waist without any explanation, their faces filled with indignation. Serves him right, Shurji bluntly rebuked. Who told him to be a womanizer? Kurumi shook her head and shrugged her shoulders. Lore husband, please take care of yourself, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.